It's like they're trying to be too meta.
You're gonna make them an offer they can't refuse.
Yeah. You can buy you a drink.
Well, I mean, he did pick out somebody we know.
When you sidestep the question, that technology does not exist.
Hey everybody, you're listening to A to Z episode 23. Today's guest is Tyler Troutman, board member of the Lumberton Chamber of Commerce and Precinct chair of the Hardin County Republican Party.
Hey you guys, what's going on? I'm Aaron. I'm here with my co-host Zach.
What up?
Welcome to A to Z. If this is your first time listening, thanks for checking us out.
A to Z is produced sort of weekly, and show notes can be found at a2zpodcast.com. If you like what you hear, feel free to hit subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast fix.
You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at A to Z BMT, where you can find updates, clips, and all kinds of extra content.
So today is Tyler Troutman.
Yeah, man, it was we had a really fun time going down a lot of rabbit holes, you know?
Oh, totally, yeah. You brought over a bottle of Gentleman Jack.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We sipped on some whiskey and talked policy, basically, and not just policy, but, God,
we had so many different things we went through the list, but the interesting thing about Tyler is Tyler has followed us since the very beginning.
Yeah.
Since episode 1 that we released, he was on it, and I don't know how he even found out about it, but he was always liking stuff, and that's not why we brought him on. He's genuinely a very interesting guy.
Yeah,
that's
he does
why we brought him on.
Stuff.
He's one of those type of guys who, when you see how much he's working on in his day-to-day life, he makes you feel like a lazy asshole.
Yeah, that's pretty typical of our guest, I guess you could say.
It is typical, but so we knew we could get into some really fun discussions when he came on, and pretty much I would like wrap the whole episode up as saying like we kind of went around and really figured out that being a Republican is not a bad thing. At least it's not like it's not the 4-letter word that some people on the left might say. You know, he's a progressive Republican. Yeah, he's a moderate, just like we are. No matter which way you lean, I think that's the takeaway from this whole thing is just how much we all have in common.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like even if you're not a right-leaning person, I definitely listen to this and you know.
Oh yeah, there's so much for you to listen to. We talk about space and all kinds of stuff.
And you know, medical marijuana is one thing that was a big thing that we touched on. So it's really just it's a good. You should listen to it because it's a good example of, you know, this is the kind of conversations that you could be having with people. This is a representative of a party that a lot of our friends really are not too akin to.
Right, and that's the most important thing is that instead of shying away, we all need to have discussions.
Yes.
And just like we did here, I'm not trying to say we did anything special, but hopefully if you listen to this, maybe it will convince you to talk to the people that you don't really relate to the most, and you will find that you have plenty to relate to.
Absolutely. So if you like what you hear, subscribe, leave reviews and comments. We want to hear your feedback.
That's it. We got big stuff in the works, so just keep your ear to the ground.
All right, everybody, welcome to A to Z. Today, we're going to get political on y'all's asses.
Yeah, a little bit.
We have Tyler Troutman he'll illuminate some more on this, but just stealing from, I guess, your Facebook page. It's Executive Board of Directors at Lumberton Chamber of Commerce, Precinct Chair, Hardin County Republican Party, and also member of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas.
Yeah, Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas with
that's a curveball.
President Will Young.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's you've really been. I got to give you props. You've been like one of our biggest fans. Like you've
oh yeah, definitely.
You've been really supportive of the show. You've followed us on social media and really given us a lot of love. So we appreciate that from you.
Well, and more than that too. More than just liking or hearting stuff, you actually interact and hope. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do is start conversations and stuff like that. So we kind of have a sort of a pseudo relationship already just through social media, and that's pretty dope.
Well, I thought it was pretty funny. Like you started popping up after the Will episode, and I would see you like things, and I clicked on your name one time just to see kind of who you were, and I saw the Astronomical Society, and I figured, okay, so he's a buddy of Will's. And I don't know how I glanced over these other things, but it's like you had been around, you hit us up for a sponsorship actually, but what really kind of clicked it home is I saw the video that you did of a recent meeting at
the Hardin County meeting,
and that's what really kind of just struck me in the head is like, why haven't we asked this guy to come on? So
we recently had the Republican Party of Hardin County Convention, so all around the state. every county in Texas will have a county convention, and they're going to go over the resolutions that they want to put on their official county platform. And these are things that are important to them that they want their local legislators to really pay attention to and really fight for. And those resolutions will go up to the state, and then the state will decide what is their official party platform, and that becomes the official platform.
So like every county's party has a convention.
Exactly.
And then they all kind of coalesce at the state level.
Yeah, and before that happens, you actually have a committee that you have to submit your resolution to. Luckily, I was on that committee, so people are coming to me saying, "Hey, this is my resolution, and we will vote it down
This is important
or
to me.
vote for it before it even goes before the county." And so during that resolution committee meeting, the one that we're going to talk about wasn't on the agenda. We kind of had like a last minute entry. So we're going through, the typical ones, and I had two, by the way, that were pretty successful. I had one that was to eliminate annual vehicle registrations and make it when you purchase your vehicle or your trailer, that you pay the one-time registration fee, and then you're done. You don't need to pay an annual fee to own property.
I need to pay for my tags. God, it's the 4th.
Same.
It's April.
Right.
My shit's actually up.
How many years have you owned your car? And shouldn't you?
Yeah, it's up now.
Right.
I
It's
remember
like
that.
$100.
Would it be nice to do it
I
once?
gotta make a note. Yeah.
So we actually amended it to be for private use trailers only, because we felt that would be more likely to pass than
start.
all vehicles. Because
And that one's even dumber to me, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
You want to buy a trailer and then have to pay for a tag every year?
Yeah,
For a trailer?
some people use their trailer once, twice a year.
might not
or
ever even use
maybe
it.
never a year, or a boat. And it only makes sense to do, one time only. If ownership changes hands, do it one more time. Louisiana does it this way, and so we felt that would be a little bit more of ease way into it rather than ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yeah,
because
dip your toe in the pool.
yeah, and then the second one was, totally bipartisan and had wild popularity, and that was to make Texas a state that remains in daylight savings time year round. So what we're in right now, where it gets dark at 8:30, we would stay in that year round, and it makes no sense to change whatsoever. Maybe people prefer it the other way. I don't know.
It actually has a psychological effect on people.
Yeah, it really screws us up.
Oh yeah. There's shift workers. There's people that aren't working 9 to 5, but the majority of people work 8 to 5, 9 to 5. And when you get off work at 5 o'clock, you don't want it to be dark outside.
No.
Nobody likes that. People are so much happier when they've got a few hours of daylight. They can mow the grass.
Well, and there's really no kids on farms anymore that have to get up at 5 and do the chores.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're not an agrarian society like we once were when that was put in place.
That's
So
right.
It doesn't really
And,
make sense.
Yeah, Arizona doesn't observe it. Hawaii doesn't observe it. And
Pretty much every country in the world, but
Oh yeah.
but like what is it? Who does it?
I don't know.
yeah, there's not
Portugal
many.
or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I mean, it made sense at one time, but it's kind of silly to keep going. To keep going is only tradition. That's
Right.
it. That's the only purpose is tradition.
For sure. But anyway, back to the committee. So I'm on the committee, and just like any other Republican function that I go to, I'm about 20 to 30 years younger than everybody in the room. There's nobody anywhere close to being moderate. These are hard, far right, conservative.
For sure.
Oh, we grew up in Hardin County, so we
Yeah,
we're Silsby boys.
Hardin County was over 80% Trump. All of our elections are pretty much over in the primary because there are no Democratic opponents.
Right,
so
right.
it's multiple Republicans running against each other in the primary. Then they have a runoff, and then they're unopposed. And so we're on the resolutions committee, and one guy brought up medical marijuana, even though it wasn't submitted. There wasn't any resolutions for it. And he mentioned that he had a daughter that lived in Colorado, and he had some back pain. So one day he was trying it, and he was telling us about his bad experience and that he would never approve medical marijuana or whatnot. And I was like, oh my God, this is how we're gonna be.
Yeah.
So, I said, with all due respect, that's not medical marijuana. You went to a recreational stop.
Yeah.
You probably got 10 milligrams for your first time.
Probably got like some dank stuff, dude.
Right. You don't know, and you're not easing yourself into it. You're not being monitored by a physician. You don't know what you're doing, and you're 60 years old, and it's your first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
Doing an edible. So obviously you had a bad experience.
edibles give me bad experiences, honestly. So
Yeah. So we got to the day of the convention, and they say, we're gonna disperse for 30 minutes. The resolution committee is going to meet in the back. If you have any last minute resolutions, you can present it to the committee. And we get the one person in the room that's close to my age is a young lady, and she was super nervous, not good at talking in front of people. She wanted to present her resolution and, talk about the health benefits of oil.
CBDs.
So we had some confusion at first where people were thinking, well, isn't that already legal? And I was like, yeah, so there's CBD oil that's already legal. You can, get that wherever, but the THC, which is not currently legal in Texas for either medical or recreational. It's just, Colorado, Washington, Nevada, several other states. And so she proposes
bunch
it.
Of Democratic states.
And so I try to, relay to the resolution committee, like, look, we've got alcohol that's legal, which has 0 health benefits. You've got tobacco that's legal, has 0 health benefits. We have, medical marijuana that's criminalized, that actually does have legitimate health benefits and could be regulated. And we're not asking for a resolution to make it recreational. We're for physician monitored medical use only for oil. So we really dialed in that resolution to be specific for THC oil for a medical basis. And, it kind of converted that one guy on the because I explained to him that his situation was not what we're asking for.
Right.
Yeah. And so then it goes before everybody. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm looking around the room. Everybody's 80 years old and white hair, and she proposes it, and it totally throws everybody for a loop. They're like, what? and you get 3 minutes to speak in opposition, and one guy speaks in opposition against it and has the weakest argument that you always hear, saying this is the gateway drug it's going to lead to cocaine and heroin. And I was like, no, that's not what people want to do. They're simply looking for the healing properties of something that has legitimate healing properties, and that's all they want to do. They're not looking for anything else. And since we're asking for a medical specific reason, that it's not going to lead to that anyways. So I get up there and I explain to everyone the difference between CBD and THC, and I kind of say, look, if everything I'm saying is going like right over your head, then maybe you should sit this one out on the vote and inform yourself a little more, do some research, become a little bit more educated before you just blindly vote for something that you know nothing about.
Right.
And so we explain the difference and sit down, and we go to yays or nays, and it's really close. It's like 50-50, like yay versus nay. Well, it turns out that it was more the case that the nays were just louder than the yays. So we have to go to a standing vote, and they said, if you're in favor, stand up. And we're in conservative Hardin County, one of the most conservative counties in Southeast Texas. Our congressman has 100% conservative rating. And lo and behold, like 80% of the room stood up. And, I'm kind of looking around to see who the nays are. And it's really just that one guy, maybe a couple others, and that's it. So it passes.
Well, and apparently it passed in Jefferson, too.
And that's right. I mentioned it on social media because I was in shock. I was like, this is a milestone that people just don't understand for a conservative Republican Party. And one of my buddies that's on that went to the convention for Jefferson County say, hey, it also passed in our county as well, for the Republican Party. Yeah. So that was definitely something that I wanted to share with people, because I saw someone just today posted, some statistics about the benefits of medical marijuana, and kind of a sarcastic remark like conservatives can't get on board, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, did you know that the Republican Party in Hardin and Jefferson County both passes? They're like, wow, I didn't know that. Right. So we're trying to get it on the state platform.
You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know why people seem to attack the other side, thinking they're going to change their mind. And you'll just dig heels in.
Not to pat myself on the back, but hands down, if I wouldn't have been there, I don't think it would have passed, because nobody. The young lady, bless her heart, couldn't have.
Right. She couldn't have articulated it.
She couldn't have vocalized it, and I just was able to explain it in more of a scientific, realistic way and kind of calm everybody's nerves a little bit.
Well, they obviously wanted it in the end. It was 80%.
Exactly.
They just kind of had to get out of their own way.
For sure.
Well,
and
there's still the stigma there.
Yeah. Because I went to my precinct meeting, and we were in a small group, Precinct is kind of like the street that you live on. Say we're on this street here, it's going to be, you're a couple blocks, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you're meeting with a small group, and this lady was in there, and I said something about, being a moderate, and she was like, well, what is a moderate? She looked at me like I had three heads, and I was like, well, I look at the issues, and if it makes common sense, then I'm usually for it. If it doesn't make any sense at all, I don't go with it just because my conservative buddies think that it's cool. Right. And she's just like bewildered, because they're just kind of like blindly. So that's what I'm trying to get everyone to realize, that that's what the Republican Party has to evolve into, or else it's going to die. It's going to die, one, because of age, because there's nobody else there that's in their 30s or below. And
I think both parties are kind of dealing with the same kind of thing.
too.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference in the Democratic Party, where they get the celebrities to come to their national convention, and they've got the young liberals that are in college because they haven't started paying taxes on their own. And when you get out of college and away from those liberal professors that talk about socialism, and you start paying taxes on your own, and you start paying your student loans, all of a sudden you become a little bit more libertarian, a little bit more maybe Republican, because you're out there in the real world. But there's definitely a big draw for younger people, because you've got New York, which is kind of Wall Street, the financial capital of the world. You've got Hollywood in California, which is the entertainment capital of the world. Then you've got San Francisco, Silicon Valley, which is the tech capital of the world. All of those places are very liberal and very democratic. Yeah. And for entertainment,
everywhere outside of San Francisco is red as hell. But it's different.
They've got John Oliver, Steve Colbert, Bill Maher, Trevor Noah. We've got nobody and nobody. So
we've got Ben Shapiro.
Who's great. His podcast went from like 3,000 subscribers to like 3 million in a year. Right. And you got Tommy Lahren that gets angry at everybody.
I wouldn't call her a Republican though. Ben Shapiro makes sense. She doesn't make any sense.
If there was anybody that I would never want to debate, it would be Ben Shapiro.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just wish there were more representatives of Republican conservative people that were. It seems like most of the talking heads are the faces of the right. They're antagonistic, just like the left. They're both antagonistic. Right. But I just wish there were more people who were trying to find the common ground, kind of like what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. That was one thing when I went to my very first Astronomical Society meeting at the planetarium. I go in and I told them some of the things I was involved in politically, and I said, I'm here because I want to try to bridge the gap between science and Republicans and try to let everyone know that, hey, there's also Republicans that understand the challenges with climate change and the environment and space travel. And, we are for those things, and we're not all just crazy conservatives.
Well, I mean, George Bush wanted to put a space station on the moon, man. You know what I mean? So
a lot of people don't know that it was actually Obama that killed the Constellation program. So when we retired the shuttle program, we had a 3-part program called Constellation that was 3 stages: one for the moon, one for an asteroid, and then the third for Mars. And the Obama administration killed that.
It just defunded it?
Yeah. And so now every time we go to the space station, we hitch a ride on the Russian Soyuz.
Right.
We have no way to get Americans to and from the space station without the Russians. And one reason I love the International Space Station is because it's the only place where like 13 countries get along with each other.
For sure.
They have to literally get off of this planet to get along with each other.
Right.
And I think that it's great how we're doing the public-private sector, partnership with SpaceX and Elon Musk. And I love the Heavy Falcon launch. Just watching everything live.
Land.
Oh yeah,
yeah. The landing's the most amazing thing. It looks like science fiction. It's crazy.
Landing on a barge, floating a drone barge out in the middle of the
ocean.
ocean.
There's 7,500 foot tall pieces of metal that are landing.
That's incredible.
If there was ever a human that is the real life Tony Stark, it's Elon Musk by far. Because he just dreams stuff up. Like who else could go to the Los Angeles City Council and say, "Hey, we got a lot of traffic. I'm gonna drill holes and tunnels under the city, and we're gonna put cars on a dolly and shoot them across town."
Yeah, he probably,
and they're like, "Yeah, man, go ahead."
They're like, "Do whatever you want."
Yeah,
well, he went in there and pitched
flamethrower.
Oh yeah, the flamethrower.
Yeah, so to raise money for the Boring Company, he sells $500 flamethrowers and immediately sells out right away. So
I think once he had that whole kerfluffle with the girlfriend or that chick that he was with, he kind of went a little Playboy-esque and
for sure,
and started having fun with it.
Yeah,
let him do his thing, man. Let empower individuals in the country to do their thing.
So I guess back to the Republican Party, and so you why I was excited to have you on is because that video kind of it was cool to see that you represent the moderates in the Republican Party, people that I haven't really met.
Yeah, and I wanted to let everybody know that we are making strides and changes.
Making headway in that.
And if it can be done in Hardin County, it can be done anywhere.
Absolutely.
To bring it back more to the moderate. Because all in all, if we go another 8 years and you're so far to the right, so far conservative, you're not going to win any elections because that's not where our children are. That's not where our grandchildren are going to be. They're going to be way more moderate than they are one way or the other. They're not going to be super left-wing liberal. They're not going to be super right-wing. They're going to be more common sense. And that's what a lot of young people are kind of headed towards these days. And all in all, you can't make changes if you don't win elections. And so you have to figure out how you can appease to both sides of the aisle. I think that, the two-party system is unfortunately the machine that we have right now. And I mentioned earlier that you take these common sense guys like Rand Paul and John Kasich, and they can't win elections. Rand Paul wouldn't win a presidential election because they don't have scandals, they don't have excitement, they're not tabloid material. And instead of going for these common sense candidates, we're going for the entertainers.
Sure. We're gonna vote for The Rock in 2020.
Yeah, The Rock and Oprah, I think.
See, I don't want to screw you in your own party by asking you what you think of Trump or anything like that.
Well, so I was for Trump in the beginning, like right from the get-go. A lot of people from Southeast Texas were for Cruz, and then they switched to Trump. I was at home on my lunch break when he made the announcement. Trump was like, "I've got a big announcement," and it was that he was running for president, and he had the speech that he was going to go in there and change things and turn Washington on its ear. And I was like, there's no other time that I would probably vote for Trump except for this one, and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, well.
But what he doesn't realize is that Washington is set up for gridlock. Like, you really can't make drastic changes, which is, in a way, it's good for us because you don't have politicians come in and totally revamp the U.S. every year.
You don't have like dictators.
Because if you screw up, you can't screw up really bad.
Right, but in 8 years, Obama did the Affordable Health Care Act, and that's really it. That's all he did, because you can't make drastic changes without all these checks and balances.
Actually, the drone bombings and all the meddling in other countries' affairs increased significantly under Obama.
And I think Trump's finding that out now, that he can't just go in there and do what he wants. He's got lots of other checks.
Well, his tweets have shown that he's not. He's not really against it as much as he did last year.
Right. And I'm not a huge fan of the just like thought vomit from Twitter.
Right.
I wish that he would rein it out. I don't agree with everything that he does now, but he was definitely the better choice. I think the Democrats picked a terrible candidate. It was really a year that the Libertarians could have shined, but they didn't go with the right candidate either.
Right.
I like Gary Johnson's ideas, but he's a goofball when it comes to.
I voted for him. So,
yeah.
I think anybody that's running for president is crazy, but I think Gary was a lot.
I just think he was always
different
stoned.
kind of crazy.
I just think he was stoned all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I really loved his ideas on healthcare.
Yeah.
Where you've got to get the government out of the health insurance business and make health insurance for catastrophic injuries only. If you go and need to get your gallbladder taken out, that's what, maybe a 1 hour or less surgery.
At this point, that's the only health insurance I can afford.
Yeah. If you go. If I had my company's health insurance and you had ACA or your another company, and we both needed gallbladder surgery, we could go to the same hospital, have the same surgeon, have the same amount of days of stay. It could vary anywhere between $5,000 and $90,000. That shouldn't happen. He was for advertised pricing,
for sure,
increased competition,
transparency,
and more along the lines of say a lawyer. If you hire a lawyer on an hourly rate, it could be anywhere between $150 an hour to $500 an hour. So let's say maybe $300. So average $300 an hour. That's about what the physician. It's comparable to a physician. So that you do a 1 hour surgery, it's $300. You have an hour of prep, an hour of recovery, and you go home. You should be able to pay for a gallbladder surgery out of pocket, $900, and you go home.
Yeah, but then they have $1,000 cotton swabs and stuff.
Exactly.
That's the thing. It really, we would benefit more from just regulation. I mean, regulation of the health industry. So if we had like state insurance, if we had universal health care, it would benefit from regulating the industry. If we had nothing but free market insurance, it would benefit. Everyone would get cheaper. And when we have, like you said, $100 cotton swabs, or literally, no joke, like $300 saline bags. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're all losing.
Because if you go in and you say, oh, well, I can't pay that, I'm a cash patient, automatically your bill goes down. Well, what if we were all cash patients? So I'm more for the free market approach. LASIK and cosmetic, that's a good example. If you go to Google right now and I typed in LASIK surgery, I would get 100 ads.
Yeah, for like $7.99.
Begging for my business. I would get payment plans. I would get all, if you type in major surgical procedure, you're not going to get any upfront pricing or advertised pricing.
And LASIK, they're shooting lasers into your eyeballs.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not serious.
And same thing for
it could be as low as $2.99 per eye up.
Oh, exactly. 4,000. Try to do that for appendectomy. You're not going to get the same. You can't. And it's kind of like let's say you have grocery insurance, and you go down to the grocery store and you put all the fillets and all the steaks in your cart, and you say, well, how much does this cost? I don't know. I've got grocery insurance. It doesn't matter.
But as far as I guess as a representative of the Republican Party, you believe that people shouldn't be bankrupt and like triple or six figures in debt because somebody ran into them on the highway.
Yeah, most definitely. I think there should be a certain dollar amount for the insurance where that would kick in for catastrophic reasons. We should take care of the poor and we should take care of our elderly, and everybody else should be able to walk in and pay for minor procedures out of pocket, no problem. The same as way if you were going to a lawyer to write your will. You're not going to have lawyer insurance. You're going to say, hey, this is going to be a couple $100s to do this service, because it's a professional service, and here you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls in that debate, but the thing is you have to be willing to talk about it. You have to be able to, it is a problem.
Right.
And, you have to solve problems. So
I was just wondering how you moved up in the local parties with those ideas. Because every time I get on any of the political groups on Facebook, things like that, I'm met with. I mean, I know they're not representative of the whole party,
right.
but
it's kind of like that meeting. How the yays and the nays were the exact same decibel. They sounded the same, but that's only because the nays were louder.
The nays were louder.
I can't count how many times I've been called a libtard or an alt-righter or something like that,
right.
just because of the ideas. I'm just wondering, how are you getting responses with these kind of ideas? Because I don't think if any of our listeners are liberal, and I'm sure most of them kind of are at this point. They would never think that Republicans would think this way.
Yeah, one thing is I'm literally nice to everybody. There's rarely a chance where I get into calling people names on the internet, and grandstanding with identity politics.
Yeah. So that's where we got.
I really try to dial it into common sense, and those are things that where if I were in an election on a larger scale, I don't get a lot of attention because it's not exciting. I don't have any sensationalism. Yeah.
It gets people like our attention, though.
Yeah, for sure. It's more down to earth, and that's what we're going to head towards in the future. That's the goal. Touching back on healthcare, a lot of people this last election wanted single payer, where government pays for everything, and we kind of already have a great example of that, and it's the VA. The VA is a legitimate single payer system, and it's an abysmal failure.
It's terrible.
So I don't think that we should head towards that case.
And one thing I heard, I think it was a podcast, but I don't know if it's supported, but it was an idea that somebody presented that if it might have been Shapiro actually, that if we actually went to universal health care, that because of how big we are, but also because of how the majority of Americans live their life, how they take care of themselves or don't take care of themselves, it would probably bankrupt the system because we have so many people who are unhealthy.
I think so.
Right.
And you have to remember that when it boils down to, doctors are providing a service, and you would be enslaving them by having a single payer healthcare. Saying that they have to take care of this person. They're a business just like everybody else.
Right. And there's probably 1,000 different ways that you can improve the insurance, like kerfuffle. There's probably 1,000 different ways you could have preventative medicine, like life coaching, that would cut down on obesity and addiction and things like that, and that would make sure there's like less people that are potentially going to the hospital. there's a million different ways, and no one.
Those things exist, but maybe going back to regulations, that it's not the broad spectrum.
Right.
Somebody who can afford the best doctor in the country, they're going to do things like that.
For sure,
but
for sure.
Not everybody can afford it, and I mean, maybe that would be a solution, is to have it almost enforced to where, like, we can try to move forward on these ideas. I don't know how you do that.
I don't either. I'm just saying that there's like a lot of different avenues that you could take and explore, and it's not just like this one idea versus this one idea, which is what it comes down to now. And that seems to be a running theme against like the left versus the right, where the left is demanding universal health care. Well, and it's like.
You were talking about gridlock, right? Mm-hmm. So like that's why there's a lot of little things that you can change about the system we have right now.
Right.
And they're out there. You can read them, but nothing really happens. And I mean, I for the most part assume that it's a money thing. It's lobbyist financing. What do you feel about?
I think so. Like if you had a doctor open up a cash clinic. I mean, the line would be outrageous because everybody would want to do that system. Right. It's just that the doctor wouldn't make as much as his buddies, so he's not going to do it.
What do you feel? What do you feel about the lobbying cash, the campaign financing kind of thing that's going on?
That's a mess, and the whole election process is very inefficient. I think I work on campaigns for fellow Republicans, mostly in Jefferson County because it's a battleground, and the entire process is just
a battleground.
It's a huge mess. You're having to take away over a year of someone's life. They can't even be productive because they're constantly having to go on the campaign trail, and then people are having to go
kiss the ring tour. Is that what Tej called it?
That's what Tej called it.
Yeah. I think in the future, and this may be 50 years into the future, but there's got to be a way where we can just vote online. Or somehow without having to go down to a physical location.
If you can bank online, you can. But it's so fraught with fraud. I'm sure, even more so with power.
Right. It's just that the whole process is a big money.
I don't know. You can't steal people's Bitcoin. So if people can Bitcoin, if you can do cryptocurrencies, you can vote online because it is nearly impossible to actually jack somebody's cryptocurrency.
So did you guys get in on crypto at all?
No, I did, but I lost my wallet. So, and that was like 6 years
somewhere.
Ago. Somewhere on a computer.
So it did a little dip over December.
Well, it kind of had like a little. I wouldn't call it like a bubble burst, but it's very similar where everyone kept talking about it for so long.
Exactly.
And it kept like ramping up, and it did get overvalued, so it dipped.
Well, I want to get back to my question: is how the hell are you? Precinct chair of Hardin County Republican Party.
Yeah,
like
you're so demanding.
I really, because he's talking about Bitcoin.
So this is great.
You stand out, man. So there's something to this.
In local politics, it's all about participation. Because I became precinct chair. The precinct that I live in has a wonderful precinct chair. It's Larry Woodall. He's a former mayor of Lumberton.
How many residences would be in a precinct? Do you reckon?
So the population of Lumberton would be around 10,000, 11,000. That census was taken in 2010.
Right.
I'm sure it's a lot bigger.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it almost doubled or 50% by then. But back to your question, we have the precinct convention of all the precincts, and there's got to be several thousand that live in my precinct. I showed up, Larry Woodall showed up, and one other lady.
And that's it.
And that's it. Yeah. That's it. So I became precinct chair during the 2016 election cycle. Because
is that an elected?
Yes, it's elected, but I was appointed because there were other precincts that didn't have a precinct chair. So I became precinct chair of a precinct that I did not live in.
So you're kind of like at large
to fill in. And I worked an election. I worked a polling location, and I can tell you from working that polling location, there was no voter fraud going on.
Right.
Yeah,
sure.
I had.
You mean there wasn't a bunch of people being bussed in from Louisiana?
No, absolutely not. And I was actually on. I was on the computer that's not networked to the Wi-Fi or anything at all, and I was checking people in, checking IDs, and then I would pass them along through the line. But back to your question, how did I become? How could I be moderate and be in a position? It's based on the lack of participation because there's no one else there to do that job. There's a lack of people. There's apathy. There's a lack of people that care.
Local participation or participation in local politics is like laughably bad.
Well, I think more than that too. I think it's just something that's kind of a mystery because a lot of people don't know about how their local governance like works.
They don't, yeah.
You know,
and so this year, instead of being a precinct chair, I'll be state delegate. And state delegate means I'll be going to the state Republican convention in June in San Antonio, and I'll be voting on those issues for the state platform. So those issues that I kicked up to the state.
And this is for the party though.
For the entire, right.
Yeah.
And for example, we had State Rep James White, who's really awesome. He's very involved. He came to our convention and said, I'm going to read all your resolutions. I'm going to make, and that's what we're telling the politicians, like, these are the issues that are important to us. Now we need you to go legislate them and put them into action. Hopefully one day I'll be in the position where I can legislate those. Right now I'm kind of the suggestion guy. Yeah. I can't do anything past that. So that's up to him. He's got to know that this is what the people want. This is what we voted on. You know, despite his own personal agenda, you know, he may be totally against medical marijuana, but our county voted on it, and
so you have to represent that,
and that's what he needs to represent. Exactly. If anybody lives in Hardin County, they all know James White. He actually ran against.
Sounds familiar.
James. He ran against Mike Tuffy Hamilton, which used to own Hamilton's restaurant. He was the West.
He was a state rep. Yeah. He was.
Exactly.
Right.
And then our U.S. Congressman would be Brian Babin, and he's on the
we have
the science and technology. Yeah. Beaumont would be Randy Weber.
Weber. But Babin, that's a weird district, right? Like that cuts
to
almost
Houston.
to Houston.
Yeah. And so he has a Democratic opponent that is super active. And I kind of gave a short speech about this at the county convention. I said, look, almost every year, every cycle, Babin goes unopposed. He wins by a landslide, like 90%. I said, y'all need to get out there and help him this year because he has a Democratic opponent that is kicking ass right now.
Who is that?
Dana Steele. She's a former radio personality.
Oh, no.
And
she definitely knows how to plug herself.
Dana.
And the main thing is that I guess she's, semi-retired or independently, business contractor or whatnot. She has a lot, Babin's work, and he's in D.C. He's coming back and forth. She is everywhere. I follow her on social media because I want to follow the opposition.
You got to keep up.
And that'd be, that's going to be good for him, though. I mean, honestly, if he goes unopposed all the time, he might not be doing the job he could be doing. Right. If he actually had a fire lit under him,
Yeah, I think that because people ask me, they're always coming up to me all the time because of what I'm involved in, saying when are you going to run for something?
Sure.
And I said, look, that's further down the line, but. To become to overtake or to run for U.S. Congress, you would need at least $50,000 in campaign contributions to probably be viable, to be taken seriously.
Right.
And if you want to take down an incumbent, you would probably need $250,000.
So why? I mean, what is the link? What's the link between that number and success? Why would you need $50,000 for it? Is it because you would need to make signs? Because everyone that's working for you is volunteering, right? So that's free.
Yeah, and you may have some staffers.
Okay, you may have some staffers.
Yeah, because there's just only so much volunteering.
50,000, like that's just kind of.
And then it would be like
that would be my estimate.
And then it'd be kind of like an advertising
sort
of budget, right? Because you have to advertise.
Exactly.
You have to produce content.
And here's where Dana Steele came from. When she first filed, it cost like $5,000 to file.
Okay.
To be on the ballot and declare yourself for a party. She actually did a waiver, like a petition to save money. If you don't want to pay the $5,000, you can get a certain number of signatures to get on the ballot.
Support.
So she was first starting out. She didn't have the money, and she got on the petition. She now has over because campaign finance is public. She has over $100,000 in campaign contributions. So that's why I was really lighting a fire under everybody to. I mean, they didn't even know who her opponent was.
Right.
I was like, look, go look her up on social media. She's out there. You've got.
Well, that's the weirdness of that district. So that's happening all the way on the other end of town.
And I remember telling her in the beginning, I was like, because she's in Newton County, Jasper County. I was like, if you think you're gonna win, you're a liberal, you think you're gonna win those counties, you're crazy. And then now I'm worried. Now I'm trying to because there's a little sliver of Harris County that you've got to get on, and it's the space station, or no, it's not space station, the Johnson Space Center.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So Babin's on the Science Technology Committee, House Committee. Because he has the Johnson Space Center.
I thought I'd read some negative news, or at least disappointing news surrounding that, but I can't really comment on it.
Yeah, he's very pro science and pro space.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's a bipartisan issue where both sides of the aisle want space. Ironically, it was Obama himself that just kind of nixed the NASA budget down to its lowest in history.
I wonder why that happened. That's very odd to me. I don't know.
I don't know if he was trying to open up the gates for the private sector to take, because that's where Boeing came in and started the Orion.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a very
'cause
Republican thing to do, though, doesn't it?
During his terms, that's whenever those private space corporations.
It is, and SpaceX does get subsidies, so they're kind of it's a partnership.
Sure.
Yeah. But I think it's necessary. I think that's the way that we're headed to, is private space agencies, because they're far more efficient. SpaceX can launch rockets
whenever
cheaper.
it land, like the thing where it can land it and recover them, that saved
a lot of money,
billions. I think they say.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, but one of the things I was just touching on the campaign finance is there was somebody that proposed an idea of making that the financing of it, doing away with contributions and making it like you get a budget given to you by the state.
Right.
So, like, basically, if you want to run, you meet the qualifications, and they give you this much money, and this is all you have, and something like that. Like, it's financed by the people in a way.
Right.
Yeah, because you have corporations that make contributions, and they say a corporation is not a person, so they can donate much more.
It's going to be a little eye wink favor later, you know.
Yeah, it's really dicey, you know. So I'm definitely for trying to level the playing field on campaign finance.
I'm just for getting rid of conflicts of interest. That screams conflict of interest to me.
Yeah, it does.
No one gives you money for free.
Well, no,
that's just universal.
I was trying to dig into it, but Mitch McConnell, he did that quick turn a couple weeks ago about the hemp production in his state. And I can only assume. I mean, it might be the conspiracy theorist in me or whatever, but I can only assume that he has a buddy that has land that they would grow hemp
but that was
on,
something people in his state were actually asking for, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was.
I mean, man, it's just the quick turn from like being against it and then like being for it, like instantly, like just screams some kind of, there's some kind of influence.
So many times it happens where there's something that Trump wants to push through, and the congressman will say, "Man, that's a great idea, but you know the people back in my home district aren't going to like that, so I can't vote for it."
Right.
And so despite what they believe,
is that pork barrel spending?
Yeah. And if you try to be the righteous politician that says, I'm not owned by anyone, I'm not going to do any favors, then you're also not going to win any elections.
You're going to get ostracized from the rest.
So there's that.
They'll call you crazy, like the Rands, like Ron, when he ran, people called him like a crazy old squirrel, right? Because he was making too much sense.
And so at my age, maybe I'm in my 40s, maybe in my 50s by the time I get to that level. So it's going to be people that are my kids' age voting for me. Maybe their thinking is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Just like all the generations. If you think, with racism, you take my grandparents to my parents to me and then my kids. Each generation is less, is very much less racist than the other before it, and more progressively thinking.
Mm-hmm. Well, they just replaced racism with other sort of tribalistic thinking, really, a lot of times. I mean,
tribalism is a huge key because everybody wants to be part of a group.
Well, tribalism is a problem with both sides, both parties.
It is. It's definitely it's a human problem. It's not. Well, that's what I mean.
It's nobody's fault. But
nobody likes to be left alone. Nobody likes to be that much independent.
You definitely see it with young people. I mean, like, so the generation before us, like Generation Z, they're monumentally less racist than any generation before, but they're also a lot more either leftist or like far right. So they're really sinking their teeth into tribalism.
Yeah, because I would see some of these liberal groups that had banners with the sickle and the hammer, and I'm thinking, do they even know what that means?
I don't understand. I don't understand how that's not a hate symbol. They want to cry out hate symbols all the time, like, and you can't have a swastika, which I don't think you should.
Yeah,
but then they put that up. And I just don't understand.
Virtue signaling, and
it just hasn't been done right yet.
Yeah, sure.
It actually it's been done in Venezuela. It's a great case study down there. Look at that, where people are eating their dogs because
but you also on the flip side, where I draw my beliefs with that is that I don't think that pure socialism or communism is a good thing at all, but I also don't think that pure capitalism
pure free market is definitely not good anything.
But I think finding that they've been demonized so much that you can't even talk about incorporating some pieces of it.
Sure.
Yeah, there's two utopias. There's the socialism utopia and then there's a libertarian utopia.
Right.
And it's somewhere in between. Where
it's all in moderation. Everything is moderate.
Because I have a buddy that's hard libertarian. I'm always asking him like how would this work? And I was like, explain to me
take all the regulations away.
Yeah, explain,
all of them.
I was like, explain to me one more time the police and fire. And he's like, well, it's all insurance based. You pay insurance on your house, and so the underwriter sends the security out to you and the fire department, and it just, I don't know, I can't wrap my brain around how it would all work.
Military. What about military?
Yeah, well, I think libertarians agree with the military to protect ourselves.
Sure.
It's more like we make the U.S. border an impenetrable force,
and it'd be like a militia.
But we don't get into anybody else's.
Like volunteering.
Yeah. So North Korea, messes with another country. We're like, good luck. Do your thing. If it's not us.
Yeah.
And one of the things with regard to the military that I agree with from a libertarian standpoint is I would like for us to turn the surveillance and the satellites away from our citizens and onto the enemy.
Absolutely.
I don't want to surveil.
Well, hey, how about we take a little break?
Sure.
And we'll regroup.
Sounds
with
good.
privacy.
Yeah. We'll start with privacy
because that's where we're headed.
That's pretty important. Yeah. All right. And we're at our break. This is our little shill moment.
Yeah, since you are listening right now, we know you're a true fan, and as a true fan, I hope that you might tell all your friends, family, and them that we have advertising space open and available.
Totally, and it's inexpensive, and you'd be helping out and contributing to whatever kind of cause I guess we're trying to.
That's exactly right. And who are the types of people that would advertise with us, Zach?
Local businesses, bars, restaurants. If you cut hair, anything really, events even. Like if you want to pimp a show that's coming up, we'll do an advertisement for that. We'll play some of your music. If you have an art installation, or if you.
An organization.
Really, if you have a classified ads, if you're trying to sell a coffee table, we'll do that too. That'd be kind of fun.
That'd be hilarious.
So hit us up. You never know, whatever you'd want to advertise, or even if you just want to promote a cause or anything like that, and we'd
all
love
inquiries welcome.
Yeah. So let's get back to this episode with Untitled Troutman.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We just took a little break and hung out a little bit. We were going to come back and start talking about, I guess, privacy concerns with Tyler and the Republican Party, but he started telling us this story that I want to have to hear. It's the April Fool's joke that you did, right?
Yeah, I had the best weekend ever for April Fools. So I was able to prank an entire town.
And me.
It's fucking epic.
Yeah.
And me.
Yeah, so I'm telling the story, and it actually got you guys too. So if you're in Lumberton, you know that we have several city Facebook pages, and it's full of thousands and thousands of stay-at-home moms that have nothing better to do than complain about what the city should and shouldn't do.
Every city's got those, yeah.
I think if you're in Beaumont, they're West End Wanda's.
The Circuits neighborhood has a page, but yeah.
So Lumberton's been known to have a few donut shops, a few Mexican restaurants, and not too much else. So every time a new business comes up, they're like, "Oh my God, I hope it's not a donut shop." And they're like, "Why can't we get a Chick-fil-A? Why can't we get this or that? We need a Dave and Buster's," and just outrageous things and demands. So everybody is like losing their mind wanting a Chick-fil-A in Lumberton. And so I've been planning this for so long because it's such an emotional dagger to the heart for the whole city. So it's April Fool's, and there's a vacant lot on Highway 69 that had just been bulldozed, and nobody knows what it is.
Right past that Sonic.
It's across the street from the high school by the Walmart.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Nobody knows what it's going to be. Everybody's asking. So on midnight before April Fool's, I had 3 professional signs made that says "Coming soon, Chick-fil-A."
Like with the logo and everything.
And I contacted my buddies at the graphic shop, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is the best prank I've ever heard. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use the official logo, but you can't tell anyone where you had them made." And I'm like, "Deal. Do it.
Yeah.
And I call them back and I say, "Hey, I think we need 3 signs instead of 1. So I go and get 3 signs, stake them in the ground, "Coming soon, Chick-fil-A." I wake up Sunday morning, and one of my friends on Facebook posts with a picture of the land and the sign.
You didn't know about it?
No.
You didn't tell anybody.
This is a mom on her way to church, and she says, "Oh my gosh, I saw this on the way to church. # dreams do come true." And I'm like, oh man.
Oh my gosh.
The post immediately gets like 200 shares, goes viral in the community. They're fact checking it with the Lumberton Ledger, because Adam Brooks, who owns the Lumberton Ledger, knows everything that's going on in town, and it gets shared to the Hardin County News, the Beaumont Enterprise. Everybody's talking about it, and it takes a few hours for people to catch on. Like, wait a minute, isn't today April 1st? You know,
Yeah.
and then someone else chimes in and says, "No, it's real. I just drove by." And I'm like, "Yes, yeah." And I'm just
Keep it going. Keep
Wait,
it
so
going.
at this moment, does anybody know that you did it?
absolutely not, because I'm not liking anything.
Can we have the scoop?
Yeah. So I
This is
told
an exclusive scoop.
I told a few of my close friends, and I'm screenshotting them everything, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is great," you know. So I start reading through the comments, and people are like, "Whoever did this is laughing really hard right now," and I'm like, "Yeah, they are." So that's how you prank an entire town.
I'm blown away because like literally like my folks live in Kuntz. I drive down that road to get there, and I was driving through it. I remember exactly what I thought. I saw the sign. I was like, oh, that's cool. They're getting a Chick-fil-A. Lumberton's doing good.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anything else about it.
Right.
And then whenever you told me that, I was like,
Motherfucker.
motherfucker.
If you live there, it's so
It's a
emotional.
big deal.
It's so
Yeah.
emotional. Yeah. I mean, they are literally begging for one, and Chick-fil-A corporate won't put one there because we don't have the traffic counts.
Yeah.
But I don't think
Chick-fil-A's really, really strict.
I don't think
about
they
it.
understand the emotion that's attached to this restaurant there. So
Well, they got like Chicken Express. It's
yeah,
kinda the
yeah,
same.
yeah.
Chicken Express would die.
They don't put
It would just
pickles
die.
on their chicken.
Oh yeah,
but-
for sure.
Yeah.
But
That's epic prank, dude. I
It's
commend
gonna
you.
be great.
Congratulations.
That is great.
yeah, it's hard to top. So I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next year. If I should, pick a different location every year, different restaurant.
I think you
think
should
so too,
definitely
yeah.
focus on trying to prank as many people as possible.
For sure. You just
yeah,
have to keep
most
it building. Like, keep it building.
Yeah. So next year maybe it'll be coming soon. Dave and Buster's.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe that one as much. I'm like, come
No,
on,
I-
come on.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A makes more
Chick-fil-A,
sense than
yeah,
Dave &
makes
Buster's.
sense. That's very, very believable.
Oh yeah. So and my friends told me, they're like, "You're gonna get pressed for this. I don't know if it's good or bad." And I said, everybody just needs a good laugh in 2018.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think so. It's just an icebreaker. But more about Lumberton. So I've been attending almost all of the city council meetings, which is kind of like going into a time machine.
Can I ask you what time of day do they take place?
So unlike Beaumont, these are actually at a decent time.
That's
so,
what I was getting
yeah.
to. Yeah.
So Beaumont's during the day at like
it's
1
Tuesday at 1:30.
which nobody can go to.
No.
You know.
Probably by design.
I remember there was like a retirement party or something like that, and somebody was like, "Hey, you didn't go to that thing," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm at work."
Right.
Just like everybody else. Yeah. So Lumberton meets on the second Tuesday and the last Tuesday at like 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is what probably
very
what it
doable.
should be. Yeah. And which could be attended, but it's poorly attended, mostly because the only order of business is, Johnny that lives over in Boykin wants to put a basketball gym in his backyard and needs a city ordinance, and that's the main order of business. And there's a coconut cake in the break room and coffee, and meetings adjourned, and that's it. So I signed up for the public speaking because last summer I learned about Muni Services, which is a company that Beaumont uses, Port Arthur uses.
Wait, what do you mean public speaking?
So if you're a resident of the city, you can sign up to speak before the council, and you get a certain number of minutes to voice your opinion about whatever. Yeah. And I tried to do it without doing that previously. Muni Services is used by almost every city but Lumberton, and they're a company that audits the sales tax dollars. And the reason that's important for Lumberton is Lumberton City does not have a property tax. If you live in the city limits of Lumberton, you don't have any property tax.
Wait, that's pretty incredible.
Has it been that way since the beginning?
It has. Ever since the city's been incorporated, you pay a Hardin County county tax, you pay a school tax, and the city gets its revenue from sales tax.
That's quite.
There was a big hubbub about property taxes in the last year or so because they jacked them up in Baltimore.
Right, and it goes up, but that's with the county appraisal. It's not. So the Lumberton city has no property tax, and
so just to like illuminate me a little bit, sales tax. So there's a state sales tax, $8.25. Right. Is this a tax on top of that?
No, so a portion of the sales tax would go towards the city for businesses that are inside the city limits.
So a portion of that $8.25.
It's like
right, correct.
What is it, like 2.1 cents?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that?
Is that something that you have to like debate with the state, or?
I'm not sure about that intricacy, but if you're like a restaurant or Walmart that's inside the city limits, then you file a city tax, sales tax permit within the city, and that's where the city of Lumberton gets its revenue.
Right.
The city of Lumberton does not have enough revenue. I live on a street like a quarter mile from City Hall, and they took up the asphalt one year and laid down white rock gravel for several of these streets. And
like as a permanent solution?
Well, like 6 months go by, and I'm like, I called down. I was like, hey, when are you guys going to come do the asphalt overlay? And they're like, oh, we're not. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not? Like, this is a gravel road in the middle of the city. And they're like, well, we don't have the money and we don't want to borrow it. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you don't want to borrow it, but why don't you have the money?
So this Muni is, what are they called again?
Yeah, so Muni Services is a company that reallocates misallocated sales tax dollars.
It's like an accountant firm, basically.
Yeah, and it's a contingency base, so it's free. They find and give you 70% of what they find, and they take 30% as a commission.
Right.
And this could come from
like savings, basically.
Yeah. So you have online sales tax where if you order something on Amazon right now, you'll see a sales tax, and so your billing address, your shipping address, that should go to you. If you have a physical entity or a physical location in Texas, like Bass Pro Shops or Josse Bank, that sales tax from what you order is going to go to that city, or it should.
Right.
If you're not contracting with Muni Services, you don't know.
So not only do they track where the funds that are within the city are going, but they also find funds that are
misallocated. Okay. Correct.
Wow.
And it doesn't cost the city anything out of pocket.
Exactly.
And so Beaumont gets a list of the ranking order of sales tax dollars. So Academy was number 1 the last time we did the report.
Really?
Okay. And Lumberton has no idea. They get a number from the comptroller, and that's it. They don't get any data or auditing. Hotels are notorious for paying late or paying incorrectly.
Are there any hotels in Lumberton?
We have a couple.
That's right, on 69, right?
Yeah. Muni Services will stay on the hotels and make sure that they're reporting accurately and reporting on time. They make sure that people that have filed outside the city limits that are actually in the city limits are filing correctly.
Yeah.
So they kick the tires twice a year. They make sure that if someone from San Antonio is a construction company and puts a dumpster in, city of Lumberton, that those sales tax dollars are allocated.
So the Lumberton was the only city that didn't have anything like this implemented. Was this before you were part of the council, or was it our Chamber of Commerce, or was this more recently?
Yeah, this was last summer, and I sent in an email to every member on city council, the mayor, the city manager, and invited them to a meeting with the representative from Muni Services. I was like, hey, I don't work for Muni Services.
Before or after you talked to them?
This is before. So this is in the summer.
So you gave some preparation before you reamed their ass a little bit.
Yeah. And nobody attended the meeting. They all blew it off. So I said, well, I'm going to go to the meeting and take notes and then report the notes back to you. So I went to the meeting. I was like, this is a phenomenal program. We really need this, especially since we have no other source of revenue other than sales tax. And I made an extensive, a comprehensive email, sent it to the city manager, went and talked to the city manager in person, and just no response, no interest.
Wait, what after the speech?
After the meeting.
The meeting, yeah.
So a few months, 6 months go down the road. I said, I'm gonna schedule a meeting for the council so they can hear us. And I give the presentation kind of just like the rep gives the presentation. And I say, look, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't work for this company. I simply think it's a good idea, and it's kind of a no-brainer for the city.
It's a win-win.
And the City Councilman Dan Bell says, hey, I think that this is something we need to look into. Why don't you set up a meeting with the city manager? And I said, well, actually, I tried to set up a meeting with the city manager during the summer, and he wasn't interested. And it's almost like, I don't know how to say this, without sounding derogatory or condescending, but it's like there's an intelligence level gap with,
I mean, but you also got to think, like, how many times. Maybe not for Lumberton, honestly. I can't. That's not really an excuse. But maybe Beaumont councilmen. Like, how many times are they approached with people with an idea like you should do this?
Yeah, definitely.
So I could understand how that could happen, but
I tried to dispel all the. I said, look, this doesn't cost you anything out of pocket. They're going to if they find nothing that's owed to you, you owe nothing. But more than likely, they're going to find something, and that's just free money that you don't already have.
So instead of losing 100% of that money, you only lose 30% of that money.
Exactly, yeah. Because they're doing a legitimate amount of work to reach this result, so they're going to take a 30% cut.
What was the outcome?
It's in limbo. So there's
sitting in limbo right now.
Yeah, there's still and if I could encourage them or one day get on the city council, it's definitely something I would look into to get further revenue, because the city does not want to impose.
You want to pave that gravel road.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any kind of idea why it hasn't been moved on?
I think it's just a lack of understanding.
Seems like apathy to me.
And apathy.
Well,
And it's skepticism that they don't understand. They think that this company's like out to get you.
Yeah.
And I think, no, it's absolutely not.
Well,
like
a similar stories with I don't know the full story, but with the city council, I got on a big bent like a year or so ago about bus stops in Beaumont.
We did.
And while I was doing this in Jeffco politics, I don't know if you were in there at that time. We hadn't known each other. But one of the things that I found out is that A&M has a transport department where they study municipal transport systems, and they basically they did a full study over the Beaumont transport system. They came up with solutions. They did, I think it was a multi-year thing, and they basically handed it to the city council with solutions, multiple solutions, and they decided to just put it off to the side. So you see that happen with the city government. So you're wanting to get into Lumberton and try to change stuff?
I think that would be the most realistic entry point into politics.
Yeah.
It's nonpartisan.
Right. Start small.
It's something that I feel like I could easily excel at. It's a little bit of a planning, strategic, because you're typically running against somebody that has been an incumbent of very many years. And so, you have to not rub somebody the wrong way, kicking somebody out.
Well, small town politics are weird.
Well, and things scale up too. If you have like designs for politics, whatever you learn in your tenure as a local politician in Lumberton can just scale up.
Yeah,
you're basically doing the same things in a different way. And a lot of people start even smaller. A lot of people in politics start on like school boards.
Yeah,
and things like that. Yeah,
I don't have an interest in school board, but like I said, with being voted into the Lumberton Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, state delegate, I have some entry level experience being on several boards, and with city politics, with the city of Beaumont, there's 100,000 people in Beaumont, and like it's like 10,000 people showed up for the city election.
No, I think the mayor won. She only got like 5,000 votes.
Yeah,
the mayor last year won from 6,300 votes.
So
I think, and
that was the total of her votes.
That was the total of her votes, and then the opposition got 820 votes.
Right, and so all you've got to do is energize your voters.
All you got to do is energize just a few. That's just a few.
Exactly. Voter turnout is key.
It's like I said earlier. It's like in local elections, the voter turnout is abysmal.
It is abysmal.
And people, they don't talk about it as much, and I don't know if maybe they don't talk about it because it probably wouldn't serve a lot of the people that have stayed being elected for all these decades, because they stay elected because only 6,000 people out of the population voted.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, they just convinced just enough people, and that's all it is.
Beaumont almost had an at-large candidate that was a little bit younger than me. Will Robbins did very well in his first election
for council
for at large. Yeah,
I mean, I'm honestly, I want to put my weight behind TJ just to see what happens.
For sure.
I was super interested with his episode. After I heard it, I immediately friend requested and messaged him, and I was like, "Hey, that was super interesting. Like, I definitely want to, conversate with you more."
He's running a meme troll based.
He's got to be careful about his support base, because there's only there's only a handful of people that really get behind that type of creativity, I guess you would say. Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's satirical. It's a farce. A
little bit. Yeah.
He has real understandings and designs underneath that.
Right.
That's just him being a goof.
The one thing I don't think I've said on this podcast, but one thing that I've said to people talking about politics, talking about things that are going on with the right, the left, conservatives, liberals, libertarians, is that they have a lot of good ideas, but what happens is, for one, some of the ideas that they have that are a bit much get misconstrued just through media and how people are taking things in and replicating it. They get misconstrued as like set in stone.
Right.
Okay, there's that thing, but it's also that it's the presentation of the thing. You know? It's and like if you don't present yourself delicately, you can be misconstrued and kind of be made.
You can always be taken out of context.
Exactly.
And with him, he would be very easily taken out of context.
That's what I've been trying to tell him.
The first thing they're going to say about Tej is experience, and I hate that, because it's like, why do you need to go? We were talking about this earlier. Why do I need to go through city council, county government, state government?
Not even that. Why are lawyers? Why is lawyer the most likely? Preoccupation of somebody who's.
I mean, they already know how to deal with systems, basically.
Yeah, but I get that
it's just a natural.
You're working with laws. I get that you should know the laws to make them, but
it's not an accurate
it's not
representation.
representative.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
what Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Bill Maher, and he said, where are the scientists? Where are the engineers? Where are the educators?
Where are the teachers? Yeah.
Where are the carpenters?
If you look at Congress,
Tradesmen.
it's lawyer, businessman, lawyer, businessman. Yeah, exactly. It's not
every
an
now and then
accurate
there's a doctor like Ron Paul's a doctor.
Rand's a doctor, a physician, and that's because they're independently wealthy and they can afford to run a campaign.
Right.
You can't do that when you're a school teacher. It just doesn't work.
Then at the end of the day, he's also a businessman. At the end of the day, too. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, but so I'm gonna was like 360-degree turn. What's your thoughts on life on other planets?
Oh,
like if we can put life on other planets, or if there exists.
I know what you're saying. I absolutely do believe that there are life on other planets. I think it's a mathematical impossibility for that not to exist.
Right,
but
I agree.
I think that it's impossible for us to reach them or them to reach us.
That's true. I think that
it kind of doesn't matter.
In our lifetime, there's not going to be a feasible way of travel. I mean, we can't even travel to the moon, in person. I think the future of that type of travel will be artificial intelligence. Like we'll have to send.
Yeah, it's much more likely.
drones.
It's much more likely that we will design small spacefaring, almost like nanobots.
Yeah,
they go out there and they communicate with each other and they can form systems and
right. So there's 5 elements that make up life, and the most common forms of life is hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, and helium. Helium's the one that's inert to
These
humans.
are the combined things that make it life.
Right. And all of those elements come from stars exploding. And stars explode and scatter those elements everywhere. And everywhere throughout the universe.
They start with heavy elements first.
Enriched with those elements. So it's almost impossible to think that with over 100 billion stars just in the Milky Way galaxy, all those stars have how many planets?
Right.
And then you think of multiple galaxies. It does seem like a mathematical impossibility.
Turtles all the way down, man.
You're baiting the question of the Fermi Paradox. I mean, kind of, right? I mean, the Fermi Paradox is okay. There's this many number. Let's just say that 1% of that. Okay, then we put a new restriction on. Okay, 1% of that. Okay,
the Fermi Paradox is where basically like the evolution of a species, how far it can get. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's also the likelihood of life existing on another planet.
Right.
Okay. So we know that for life to exist as we know
basically, there's
it,
only a certain amount of time for a species before it destroys itself.
Sure, but that's the paradox of it. But how you get there is sort of the question, and it's like, okay, you have to have a planet in the green zone in a solar system, not too cold, not too hot, for life as we know it, which there could be life that we don't know. And then, all right, cool. So it has to be like a certain size of the planet. The gravity can't be too great. Okay, that needs water. Okay, it needs an atmosphere. All right, cool.
Yeah, but I think
you're narrowing it down.
Those restrictions, if the possibility of us finding life on another planet in our lifetime is probably slim to none. But I mean, there's also possibilities of finding life that are in forms that we can't even comprehend.
I think
measure.
it would be if we ever actually encountered something that was like
anything
life,
like us. Never.
The only alien, I would say that I might be like reductionist or generalist about this. If we ever encounter an alien, it's definitely going to be AI. It's going to be some sort of explorational AI from.
There's also the theory that
because biological
instead
life
of going out,
live.
They'll go in.
Yeah.
Like they'll create, instead of having AI and going out and exploring, like they'll
go virtual.
They'll go virtual and they'll go inside.
Yeah, and we would 100% know about it because it's not what you see in Hollywood where they say like, oh, this guy's the president, I'm going to go find him. They don't know. They would just come. They would just come bolting in, and everybody's going to know about it. So, and then speaking on human evolution, I think the next step in human evolution is already here. It's the smartphone. I did an experiment in a group. I was in a business meeting the other day, and I asked a question that nobody knew. And I said, what do you think you could do if I gave you 30 seconds to answer this question using any means necessary? Could you do it? And of course, somebody answered in like 10 seconds. And I said, I can ask you any question and you can answer it in about 10 seconds because every one of you has a smartphone.
Right.
And I mean, I use my smartphone as an alarm clock, so it's literally on my side 24 hours a day.
Well, no, we're at
We're in
we're
transitionary
at
period.
an absolutely insane time of the human species.
Yeah, and my greatest regret is that I'm not going to live long enough to see,
Right.
the further improvements. I'm kind of at the,
I'm a
the
pessimist.
crux.
I'm
We're
a
the crux.
pessimist. I don't think we can. I don't think we can recover. Not from the communication aspect or the new technology. I just don't think. I don't think we have programmed ourselves and our brains as a species to be able to transition peacefully to what we could become with this technology.
So my daughter, that's 11, I cryogenically froze her umbilical cord. So
So you can have stem cells later?
yeah, it freezes her stem cells that could be possibly used for technology that hasn't been developed yet. Like say I need a liver.
It's very smart. very smart.
Okay, I got a touchy question. As a Republican, are you religious?
Yeah, so I'll explain my religion. You can find me pretty much every Sunday in
Not even as a Republican, but as a
No,
planetary
just
society.
as somebody
man.
who knows about these theories and these
Right.
multiverse theories and things like that. Like,
Yeah, there's nothing more that I hate. In Fight Club, when they're like, if you could fight anybody, who would you fight? I would fight a flat earther.
Or
I would
Dawkins.
totally fight a flat earther.
I would fight an atheist.
Or like a young earther that thinks the Earth is 6,000 years old.
I would fight.
What, like
I would
Ted
fight.
Cruz?
I would fight a 35-year-old Donald Trump.
He was a pretty big guy.
I know
though,
he's still big.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's 70, so I can't fight him now.
right.
soft.
I want a
But,
challenge, dog.
But yeah, so on religion, you can find me pretty much every Sunday at Calvary Baptist Church, and because what I think is if I'm wrong and religion's not real, whatever, and I die, well, it's no big deal. I just turn into flora and fauna and whatever. It's over.
Right.
But what if I'm right? Like that's kind of a pretty big consequence. Like what if there is really what if there's really a hell and you're tortured forever? Which is pretty crazy. But
Well, I would hate to.
but there's not a big risk for being wrong or right. Like all I got to do is like, hey, I acknowledge that Jesus died for me, and I'm cool with that. So
I would hate to paint myself as an alt-righter, but you ever Jordan Peterson? You ever,
yeah.
You ever
Follow-
listen to his
follow.
lectures over the Bible?
oh yeah.
They're
Jordan Peterson's
fascinating.
not all right, but yeah.
Well, I mean, they call them that. Like that's the assumption, but
just
they're really
idiocy.
they're truly fascinating. Like they're that's how I've always been. I've never been a religious person. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really a believer. I've worked for churches. This is kind of me coming out, I guess, because I've worked for churches for so long. But it's these stories and these it's not. And I'm not saying that it takes the book to learn morals or any of these things. But there's so much knowledge and there's so much that comes out of the community aspect of it that I completely support.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to put your money in a charity, during Hurricane Harvey, the church was the right place to put it.
Totally.
They're doing good things, not the federal government. That's for sure. The churches. I mean,
Or Red Cross or
there were churches that gutted houses
for free.
24/7 for free, nonstop. These were guys that were. One of my buddies worked at the drainage district of Port Arthur, which was utter chaos at that time, and he would get off at 5 and be gutting houses till 9 every night. I'm not that good. I'm not doing that,
Yeah.
But on religion, I guess the risk versus reward is stronger to be to proclaim.
I'm
that
really trying to. I'm struggling so hard. I'm trying to think. There's a.
But if I'm in the science lab, the Earth is billions of years old, like approximately 5.
Sure.
The sun's going to burn out before Andromeda gets here, and I'm not going to let my scientific data be skewed by things that.
But that what you were describing is what you did was a risk, like a basic like risk calculation about the existence versus not, and that's God, what is that? It's a philosophical quandary that was presented by I think it might have been Immanuel Kant. I don't know. It was called like the religious dilemma or something like that.
And there's probably not a lot of people like me. There's either people that are 24.
You haven't talked about any of this with Will, have you?
Well, so Will's an interesting person on this because his parents were
No. Well, you listened to the
yeah.
episode. We got into it.
And I think he said his parents were like missionaries or something to that nature, to where it was kind of shoved down his throat, and he just totally denounced it. And
see, I'm kind of on the flip side of this. Like, I don't support militant atheism. Like, I
don't either.
I really like.
We tried to get in that with Will, and he wasn't having it at all.
But it's like I agree with what you're saying. Some people, especially on the people that are atheists, would say it's a cop out to say that you would submit yourself to that kind of thing just in case. But I mean, there's nothing as long as the church that you're with is doing things that you agree with and that are line up with your morals, there's nothing wrong with going to church and believing these things.
Right, because if I live my life of 99 years old and I'm a moral, nice person, like
and this is not to say that people who don't believe are not
exactly,
moral.
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But if I do that, what's the consequence? You know, I didn't.
Well, you got to go and sing with people on Sunday and fellowship.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, exactly. I didn't miss out on anything.
There's a weird phenomenon about what church is and what it's provided for us and our species for so long that now that it's like going away, because church is kind of declining. I don't just mean like Baptist churches or anything like that, like Calvary or anything.
Well, church attendance.
I just mean church. Period. I mean like there's less people going to churches of Islam. There's less people going to like Hindi temples. Like that's just how it is. And people are like replacing it with other stuff like CrossFit. You CrossFit, right?
Right.
CrossFit's almost like church.
It's real tribalism, yeah.
It's almost like I don't want to. Tribalism seems negative, but like congregation seems positive.
And the reason CrossFit's like that is because if you suffer through something as a group,
Totally.
then you're bonded, and it's
And
like
not saying to compare them, but like with military people.
Exactly.
There's a
If you
brotherhood
go
that's
through,
bonded
but it
through
is to
struggle.
compare
It
them.
is. It is a comparison.
Yeah.
you could
I
go.
mean,
You
we're
could
not
go
putting on the same level.
Yeah, if you go through boot camp with someone of a different race, of a different,
There's
There's a story I read about that actually.
Yeah,
Really?
you're going to be brothers after
Absolutely.
that experience is over, and CrossFit is a community like that, and that's
Right.
why it gets.
It is a congregation.
It gets poked
Yeah.
fun of.
So
as
is jiu-jitsu.
groups.
Like what I do
Yeah.
is the same. Like there's
Totally.
There was nights whenever we do like promotions or especially the night that like Hoist came and taught everyone. I looked around like it felt like church. Like everyone was doing peace be with you, brother. Like
Right.
handshakes and with you. Like
You're a part
it
of
was-
something bigger than
it was
yourself.
Church, and I think that like church. The congregation aspect is actually even more relevant and important than the religion.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's fellowship.
Yeah,
It's
when,
fellowship.
when you have
we
that,
need that.
you have that experience. All you want to do is tell other people, and that's the.
I think that's a spirit. It's like a human. It's like humanism.
And that's like the thought vomit of these proselytizing vegans. You ever met a?
They're in church too.
You ever met a vegan?
Absolutely.
Holy shit! So you get in an elevator and they're like, bro, I'm a vegan, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm not even talking to you, man.
Right, yeah.
And
Well, now you're talking about a percentage, a small percentage of people.
But they're in
who are
church
little
too, though. you know?
yeah.
It's
They're
their own
proselytizing,
church,
just like-
yeah. Well, no, it's all proselytizing. It's
Right.
like one of the theories they have is that what church was before there was actual like organized religions, whenever it was more pagan, is that like they burned some herbs,
Right.
and then they stood together and they I guess got a little high, and then they sang some songs and like loved each other, and then that was
first-
good, and then that developed into what we know as
The
like
first church was probably like somebody proselytizing agriculture. They were like, "Nah, man. Hey, bro. Look, I know you're having fun hunting and gathering,
Yeah.
dog, but I just planted this wheat, yo. And I'm talking about like I got a hut. I can stay in the same place." They're like, and that can ferment, dog. What's up? You should give up your ways. You should give up your nomadic ways and come farm with me, dude. It's the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's crazy cults that get started, and people follow them blindly. It's because people want to be part of a group, and if you're not part of a group, you're looking for the next
And that's
next thing.
that's the dangerous end of the
it's,
spectrum.
it's put as like a dangerous thing. A lot of people
That's just a dangerous end of the spectrum.
Well,
though. Yeah.
you have these militant atheists like Dawkins and Will at times.
Yeah.
I love Will. I'm not saying anything about Will.
yeah.
But it's just like, and Jordan Peterson's lectures over the Bible is what made, had always thought that, but it illuminated it so much more because the stories that are within that are so...
They're so relevant.
They're
like
so relevant
universally
to,
relevant.
to the human experience, and it didn't make sense until somebody explained them in that way.
Yeah, and the most extreme form of punishment in prison is to put you in solitary confinement,
Right.
where you have
Isolation.
no contact with other humans.
It's not to beat you.
Right,
Yeah.
and so we want to be part of groups. Like you go to prison, you join a gang
We
because
need
you
it.
want to be part of a group.
We need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you and this is really really dark, so forgive me, but Nazi scientists actually did an experiment
babies.
with babies.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Did
What they did was they took care of all the babies' biological needs. They had these babies, fed it,
But they never
everything.
held them.
But they never ever held them. No
Or
one ever
touched
like
them, yeah.
nursed them and
Yeah.
everything. And
And
they
they
just all
died.
died. Every single one died.
So USA gets a lot of credit for being first to the moon in the space race, and
Yeah.
it's because of Nazi scientists like Werner von Braun. Like
totally.
Oh,
there
yeah,
was
absolutely.
there was a race to capture Werner von
totally.
Braun between us and the Russians,
Right.
and we just got lucky and got him first, and he was responsible for the Saturn V. And
Well, no, I mean, it wasn't just that guy. It was like,
Yeah.
that guy might have been more important, but
He was responsible for the.
He was
basically the father of rocketry.
We basically shut down Nazi Germany and then divvied out all their smart.
That was
people.
Operation Paperclip.
Yeah.
But
And
he was also responsible for hanging like 5 Jews a day in front of the factory.
Yeah, they did slave labor for the rocket factory, and it was almost kind of like he didn't want to be a part of that regime, but he had no other choice. You know, if they're coming to your block and they're saying like, hey, you know, join us or die, you're like, all right, let me do my rocketry. And
well, that's the important thing too. A lot of people,
but he was a full blown Nazi, no doubt about it.
A lot of people virtue signal, and a lot of people they don't realize the darkness within themselves. Right. If you
what was that Stanford prison?
Stanford prison, everything. Like if you're in the in group, you're gonna stay in it pretty much. Like if we all were born in Germany in 1932. We would have been the youth Nazis, man.
Yeah, that's the cards you're dealt.
We just would have been Nazi youth, you know, like we would have been.
And it's not to support it, but having that understanding, it would head off a lot of things like that.
Have you guys ever been to Houston and seen the Saturn V in person?
Mm-hmm. That's fucking huge.
So
Space Center.
You know, I run into. It used to be outside. Now they enclosed it. Actually,
what?
So it's in a metal building. And
last time I went, it was like
2015. And I went.
You got to stand by one of the boosters.
Does anybody need a drink? I'm looking to drink.
Yeah, I need one, please. But no, so they close it now?
Well, yeah, and you know, from time to time, I run into moon landing deniers.
Oh, dope.
And I try to explain to them, okay, if you live in Southeast Texas and you're familiar with Edison Plaza, which is one of the tallest buildings in all of Beaumont, downtown, you know, energy building. If you take energy building, put another energy building on top of it, the Saturn V is slightly taller than that.
For sure.
So
It's huge.
And if you calculate the amount of fuel that was loaded into that, they weren't going around the block. They weren't going in orbit. They were going to the moon. And I see all these arguments about the Van Allen radiation belts, things like that. They're not staying in those radiation zones. They did tests on the astronauts that went, and it was equivalent to, you know, like 1 or 2 X-rays or a CAT
exactly.
scan.
Here, I got to tell you, and this is like, I don't want to talk shit because he's my brother, but my brother, the last time I went to go visit, was telling me that he was a moon denier, and he wasn't exactly like concrete in it, but he was questioning everything.
I could believe that, and I kind of believe that they did shoot alternate footage.
In the 60s, they did fake a lot of shit, but
they faked a lot of shit.
There's things that they left behind that we can see with a telescope.
They left behind like a prism reflector on the moon surface. You can actually aim a
rangefinder.
Laser at it and get the reading back.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's been there since the early 70s.
And the base of the lunar
before
lander.
robotics. Mm-hmm. And I told him, he talked about the Van Allen belt and stuff too. I was like, bro, there's career X-ray techs who have been doing it for 40 years. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't think that humans can just go outside you're silly.
Yeah.
Like, if you think that if you think that somebody can clean up the Fukushima nuclear reactor spill, like if you can create containment for that and protection for that, but NASA can't create protection for the rockets, then you smoke the crack, dog.
Yeah, your risk factor for cancer is going to be higher, but you can still do it. It's not impossible. And if there was anybody that was going to out us, it would have been Russia or China. They would have been like, "Hey, that was BS. You guys didn't do that," and they've never done that ever.
What was the missile? Was it Saturn V?
Saturn V rocket.
I had a thought going in my head. I wanted to compare the Falcon Heavy, the new one.
So Falcon Heavy was smaller and less payload and thrust. We haven't done anything yet that's out surpassed the Saturn V.
Well, it's like I was saying earlier that the Falcon Heavy was like 100 feet, but it's 230 feet. So.
Yeah. So
Jesus. So I mean, it's not that much smaller than the Saturn V. Though.
And people always ask like, why haven't we gone back? And it takes those big federal budgets in order to do something like that, and there hasn't been a need because in the private sector, if you say, "Hey, I'm gonna go to Mars," and you're like, "Okay, well, investors, how much is it going to cost?" It's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, what are we making?
Well, how much are you going to make? We're not going to make that much. It's just discovery. Well, I'm not going to do it. You know,
right?
So it takes those big federal budgets, and we don't have that.
It takes people being willing to do something without any return on investment.
It's like World War II. Like we won World War II because the entire country decided we were going to win war. We didn't have protesters back then. They weren't protesting.
Let me interject for a second and kind of put a little stop right here. I'm not going to stop. I honestly, I'm not going to edit any of this out most likely. But I definitely want maybe to steer it a little bit more. If you have any more things to talk about here, I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to stop it. I'm not trying to stop anything like that. We're bouncing around, but like I'm really psyched that you represent the Republican Party and you are like an active member in it.
I am too.
And we're
actually
having this conversation. That's why I was saying I don't want to edit any of this, because you're, and I'm not. I know that people like you exist in that aspect of politics, but it's just like this is really. That's what I'm saying. Is like this is something that needs to be shared.
They're just not as loud as in crude. That's all.
Yeah,
that's all
and I was going to mention too that because I'm so diverse, it almost warrants multiple podcasts because of the jumping around.
Oh, you're coming back. Well, no, I don't want to sell you short, but you said something about starting your own. So
yeah. So so for the listeners out there, I was working on starting my podcast, and then A to Z popped up, and I said, whoa, let me pump the brakes a little bit because these guys got a good thing going, and I don't want to come out at the same time,
Appreciate that, dude.
Yeah,
but anytime you want to come up, just come up. Don't worry about us.
For sure. So
we don't believe in competition that way. So.
Right. Yeah. That's the cool thing about the podcast community is you see it all the time. Multiple podcasters have each other on the shows. There's no. I mean, it's very small when it comes to like sponsorships and things like that. So it's a non-competitive environment, and it's a real open community.
And everyone that does it, they pretty much just do it for the passion. Like. We know we're not going to make any money.
Right.
Like,
and that was the thing about me is I want to bring on interesting people and have them tell their story and get into conversation about it that's uncapped by time and uncapped by restrictions from it's you and a microphone, and that's it, and whatever you want to put out.
Oh, you're blowing my mind. I mean, okay, so like maybe we could steer this a little differently. Do we want to get on maybe talking about policy? Yeah,
I've got all the rabbit holes.
I mean, I know you still have a lot written down on that. Are there things?
Just a few key. Like if I say I'm running tomorrow and I need to make a website with a tab that says positions. And these are
absolutely, for sure.
I'm going to go for healthcare.
Okay.
Going for increased competition, basically.
So why would anybody care about healthcare at the local level?
I think people get into positions that affect them personally.
They do, That's why people are very interested in healthcare,
right? And
because they might die.
Yeah, I get pissed off when I have a penalty on my tax return.
Yeah,
I get pissed off when I have $600 a month.
Can I explain that penalty real quick? In the way I actually see it, and this is how, because I've talked to like a lot of Republicans, and that penalty, I kind of understand that penalty in a way. Because if it didn't exist, then there might be a lot of people to leech off the system.
Right.
So because if you show up at a hospital fucked up, they're gonna have to.
This is the thing. The reason it makes me mad is because I'm 36 and healthy.
Yeah.
I could pay $600 a month for health insurance and never go to the doctor.
But here's the thing though, and this is the whole like sort of quandary of the entire thing, and this is how I explain it and how it's so hard to figure this out is because there's like a non-starter with this. So. There is insurance, which is a business.
Right.
And there's hospitals, which is a business too. But there are doctors, and doctors take Hippocratic oaths. And if you walk into the hospital with a bicycle halfway up your ass, you're going to get treated. And that's just all there is to it. You walk in with a dagger in your head, you're going to get treated. You walk in, your appendix ruptured. You have a child, their appendix ruptured. You get in, they get treated. Mm-hmm. And then you ask for payment later. You figure all that stuff out later.
Right.
So there is an easy way for people to take advantage of the system and leech off the system, and this is a very Republican stance because, if there was like an undocumented person, they can come in and take advantage of the system.
Right. If
there is somebody that wants to live below the poverty level and never work, like if there is a homeless person, they can go in the hospital and they get treatment. So the whole, so that is just kind of like a protection against it because I know that I've actually personally know a couple of people who lived a perfectly healthy life all the way until they were 50.
Yeah.
And never had to ever pay anything.
Yeah.
Then something happens. They have a heart attack. And they go in and then they don't have health insurance and they have to fucking pay for it. So if you start that with someone who does not wish to participate in health care and give them a penalty, it just makes them pay health care for whenever the catastrophe happens. And I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I'm just saying in theory, that's why that's there. You know what I mean? Like, to kind of reduce, and which is, in concept, a very Republican-minded thing to do is accountability. It's just accountability.
Yeah, I want to take care of people. I just feel like when I pay my monthly premium, I feel like I'm subsidizing someone who's not healthy. because
I feel that too. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, like
yeah.
But I feel that too. I think the most personally rewarding thing you could do actually if you're young and healthy is just start a savings account and you put the exact amount of money that you would put in there, maybe like 10% more,
right,
every month, and have that up. And by the time you're 30, if you never got sick, then you just do something else.
Yeah, but people don't even have savings for retirement. Why would they save for healthcare?
Like, for example, I wanted to...
That was stuff that Frankie was talking about.
I wanted to increase my life insurance last month. So, I talked to my insurance agent. I say, hey, I'd like, 10 times my salary. And they're like, well, it could be this rate, or this rate, depending on the blood work. And I was like, oh, great. Like, I'm going to
cool, take that blood,
I'm going to knock this out of the park. So it had
keto blood.
It was like $30 a month for the elite, and then anywhere upwards to, 50, 60, 70 based on the blood work. So of course, everything's in the perfect range. I get the elite level. I feel like it should be comparable to health insurance. Like, hey, this guy is not going to be coming to the doc very much.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see. That along with increased competition.
And that's just a common sense likelihood.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing that would have to happen with something like that is that basic care. You would have to figure out a way to make basic care a lot cheaper.
What do you guys think about universal basic income?
Oh, don't even get me started. That's the feather in my hat, man. That's it's almost like the bus stops. Like, I have a strong belief for it because I really believe that technology is going to overtake human power.
I think there could come a point, and we may be talking about hundreds of years.
Are you supportive of it?
Well, I think that there could be a point where you have technology that has a machine that makes everything for free, and at that point, we would almost have to have it.
Well, even beyond that, like. Even if we start to automate and 50% of jobs become automated, it's not. I mean, I get the whole property owning things. It's not logically functional for a society or an economy that whoever owns those robots gets all the money from them.
Yeah,
and that's a totally like socialist communist statement. But
I don't think it's realistic right now because we're
totally not.
We're like single digit unemployment, and if there's single digit unemployment, then there's 90% of people that are willing and able to work, and they're working, and so obviously
just wait till all the taxi cabs and all the semi trucks are automated.
Yeah, for self-driving cars,
which is going to be like in 5 years.
I think they need dedicated lanes because when you throw human error, that's where they mess up. Like if you've ever seen there's YouTube videos of this where a human driver will swerve at
we're only at the precipice of this technology, though.
Yeah,
people are going to die.
Look, I tried to explain this to Will because I personally believe that automated cars can be on the road with non-automated cars and be even safer. I don't think they need a dedicated lane because at the end of the day, we are a machine. We're just a biological machine.
Yeah,
we have eyes that are peripherals to our computer brain. Mm-hmm. We have hands.
Radio lab ethics and
right,
computers.
and we have hands, and they're just like robot arms. Like we're essentially a robot.
And when there's 100 cars with drivers, and then like one automated driver, you swerve at it, and they immediately slam on the brakes and cause a pileup. So if you have,
because they're not sophisticated.
Yeah, if they're all self-driving, then they're all connected.
Have y'all listened to the episode that they did about self-driving cars and ethics? On Radio Lab?
I haven't heard that one.
I have.
So there's a point that you have to come to where if you have a self-driving car, it has what is it, LDAR or whatever. It has all these heightened capabilities.
Right.
On the basis, its job is to protect the driver. So whoever the occupants of this self-driving car are the main priority at this point. But there has to become a point to where it's the trolley problem,
Right.
You have 4 people on a tracker. You got a fat guy. You got to push
the
off.
Trolley dilemma.
The trolley dilemma. Yeah, and it's that thing. It's like, so does the car know that there's somebody slamming on their brakes in front of them? If they don't swerve, they're going to die. Do they swerve into this elderly couple, or do they swerve into this young family? And these are things that are going to have to be programmed,
right?
Because computers don't think they don't think just randomly. You can't program.
It's going to be a lot longer for those to be programmed because that's a very sophisticated thing. That is like human level sophistication. But the thing is in a very quick amount of time, it would be where car fatalities are going to like drop from maybe like 30,000 a year to like 5,000 because they're always vigilant. There's a computer watching; it's ever vigilant, It's always watching.
Yeah.
Just because it has sensors around the cars doesn't mean it's different from our eyes.
Right.
They actually have 360.
Yeah.
The technology.
But then you get to a point to where like every car on the highway is synced to each other.
They're synced to each other.
And if a car stops a mile ahead, then they will know a mile behind.
And when they do have accidents, they learn from the accidents.
And then even if, and this is what I was trying to tell Will, is like, even if you're driving a 1964 and a half Mustang without seatbelts on this road with these other cars, they'll know your presence.
Yeah.
They'll know you.
I do believe that, we're going to have grandkids or great-grandkids that are going to be like, whoa, Grandpa used to drive your own car. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like that's a foreign
It's going to be
concept.
it's going to be that moment like in Back to the Future 2. It was like, you played video games with your hands?
Yeah. I think
they're playing with their
in the
feet.
future, people are going to drive cars for recreational purposes.
I
Like
think so, too,
you'll go to a theme park.
I'll have my
and you'll-
Bronco still.
Yeah, and you'll drive off road or whatever,
Yeah.
and you go home in the street and you're self-driving.
Probably so. I mean, and that's just it's an ever evolving thing. But before we get off of though, like I want to tell you why what I think the value in universal basic income is. Because this is a very conservatively minded thing. Like when I think about universal basic income, I think there's things that you could take from that and maybe apply or just like play with it in sort of a way that we could gain value from. I don't think it's necessary now. I definitely don't think it's even applicable right now because, like you said, our unemployment's in the single digits. In the future, we might need it, but we might as well like explore it and figure it out. But I think there's a value in it when it comes to consolidation of social services.
Okay.
So one of the big things that Republicans always think is like that the government's puffed up, that social services are like puffed up, that we're spending a lot of money.
Too many entitlements. Yeah.
Exactly. Like that's one thing that people, not Republicans, but when people like talk about having a flat tax, they're like, we would save so much money because we wouldn't have to have all these IRS people. It's just a simple thing. And with universal basic income, you would basically, if you decided on the very minimal number that someone would need to live on in whatever region they lived on, like here, maybe it was like $12,000, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 9,
right?
And you just give everyone that number that was under a cap. Like say if you make below 40K a year, maybe you get that number.
Yeah.
And then everyone that's getting that, they don't get food stamps, they don't get welfare, they don't get HUD. They don't get anything because we've already made the calculation regionally for housing, food, and everything, right? And so that's what UBI, like, I think that might be more of like sort of a feasible, real world sort of thing about UBI. And then if you make over 40K, you don't get it. Or if you make over 80K, or, there's ways you can play with it because it's not a concrete thing. It's just an idea. It's a concept.
And I guess I wonder what people would do with their time.
I don't know. That's the interesting thing. Like,
would they be more creative, or
perhaps,
when people retire, 6 months later they'll die because they're not doing anything.
Perhaps,
and you see a lot of retired individuals that'll start a side hustle or get involved in the community.
And that's people at the end of their time too. They've dedicated their whole life to a body of work, and maybe the reason why they die isn't because they're not productive. Maybe the reason why they die is because they look back on their time and think they wasted it.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be possible as well.
I do believe that spending 40 hours a week, doing something that you don't like is counterproductive to human life.
I think so too.
Yeah. I really wish that we could.
It's so recent.
Yeah,
it's
because
so recent.
It's something that the society says, like, hey, you work 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and that's just what you do.
In the 30s.
And I wish that there were maybe
corporations were invented around the time or just before
see?
the Depression, the corporate structure.
Right.
They were invented around the same time as assembly lines.
Right.
It's not functional. I think it's bad for our species. We're just not going to figure it out.
I recently went from a business owner to an employee, and as an employee, I've gotten to do more in the past 3 years than I've got to do in the past 10 years. With vacations and off time and things like that, and being involved in political and civic duties and things like that.
Driving Uber, space.
Position number 2 would be father's rights, which in Texas there's not any.
None.
Yeah, the family court in Texas is totally out of whack.
You ever met Terrence Allison?
I have.
Yeah, he's a lawyer. I met through Guitar Center.
That's
actually.
right.
Really?
He kind of DJ'd on the side, but I follow him because I met him, And one of his big pushes, or his marketing strategy for his law firm, is pushing for fathers' rights.
Yeah, so if you go to family court in Texas, you basically say like, okay, you're the mom, you get everything, see you later.
No matter who you are.
And I don't really understand the point of, I think everything should be 50-50. I think, 50-50 custody, 50-50 you pay for everything, 50-50 health insurance. I don't understand the point of, having... If you have your kids, somewhat 50-50, and then the dad pays additional money and then also has to pay the health insurance and then also can't deduct them on the taxes. I don't get it. I don't see the logic. And I see that it could be a case by case basis where, the mom says, oh, well, the kid's dad works offshore in the oil field and he's never going to pick him up from school.
We're kind of at a period in time in our culture where I guess the whole equality thing and like women are pushing for more I guess representation and things like that, and it kind of reflects that. It's like if you want to go for equality, then let's closer at this.
Legitimately go for equality.
Because you have these strong, independent women that also want support. I don't get it. I think everything should just be split down the middle. I don't understand.
Well, I think they should get support too. I mean, it's...
And the main thing to me is it seems like it's not an option. Like you go to court and you say, well, this is just how it is. Right. And you'll tell the lawyer, like, no, we want it like this. And they'll say, that's not just how it works.
It's probably fairly safe to say that there are equally deadbeat moms as there are deadbeat dads.
Well, I definitely
maybe
don't
not so much.
I don't agree with that because of
but
biology.
They exist, though.
I don't agree with that because of
I know,
biology.
I know.
But there's not as much. But there are some
But it's something that
moms,
we shouldn't automate that system to where it automatically goes.
Yeah, all I'm thinking is more of a case by case basis rather than a blanket policy. Because if you go to an attorney's office and you try to work it out, they'll just say, that's not how it works.
Right. Or they'll just say, listen, we need to do like the safest bet and try to go for like the least amount of money you pay. Yeah, that's what they'll tell the dads. Be like, listen, and the lawyers will tell them, like, listen, we're in Texas, mom's getting everything.
Yeah, and I've even heard them say like, hey,
let's be conservative here.
Like, what's the problem with doing 1 week on, 1 week off? And they're like, yeah, that's too much.
We know an opposite example of that, but we're not going to.
Yeah, well, you'll say like, hey, should we just do the kids 1 week on, 1 week off? And they're like, no, that's too many switching. What do you mean it's too many switching? Like,
that's 5 minutes a week.
Yeah,
to switch.
So that would be like a political point that you would.
Yeah, because it feels like it's heavily weighted on.
I think you would get the attention of a lot of fathers.
I think so. Yeah,
because
a lot of working.
It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of good men out there who they pick up their kid from school and they give like 110%.
Well, it's like the fathers are having. It's like the fathers are being penalized and they're having to rent their kids. Yeah. Like they're having to pay money to spend less time with their kids, and I just don't see the logic in that. I know there's fathers out there that are shift working that they maybe can't pick up their kids from school.
Well, also they're shitty dads and shitty moms.
Right.
But there's also dads that pick up their kids every day from school.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's dads that have their children on weekdays and their moms have them on the weekends.
Right.
But they still have to pay the same exact money as the guy who works offshore.
One of the things you probably
it is broken. I agree.
One of the things that you would have to probably implement in that system though is you would have to implement a piece of, I guess, the governing body that decides these motions, not just the judge and what's presented to him, but you'd also have to put in some kind of some kind of psychology.
Yeah,
somebody that's an authority that can watch these people and have these meetings with these people, have these court cases with these people, and say this person's being manipulative, this person's being honest.
Yeah, because you get about 5 minutes in front of the judge,
who
he's going to decide decisions that affect your life almost indefinitely.
And I'm pretty sure CPS's their workload's pretty heavy.
Yeah, and really? you get a you get
understatement, right?
You get a 5 minute presentation in front of a judge who's going to decide your life and the kid's life for the next 18 years, and it's just his best guess, or whoever's attorney can argue better.
He might be having a bad day too. So everything comes down to human error.
Yeah, but now I mean, if that's those are the kind of things that you would have to implement to make that thing function. But isn't that an increase in government intrusion in a kind of way?
Yeah, I saw I think it was Jim Carrey that did a tweet. He said isn't marriage so crazy that someone loved you so much they're like, hey, I think I should involve the government in this so that you can never leave. But I don't think the government should be involved in marriage.
Right.
Well, actually that speaks more to someone loved you so much that they wanted the government to be involved and themselves to be penalized. Yeah. That's the way you look at marriage. So when you marry someone, you're like, God, I love that person so much that if I decide that I want to leave them, I want them to take half my shit.
Well, and it baffles me why the government's involved in marriage in the first place, because it's like, I need to go get permission from the county so that I can cohabitate with this person. It's beyond me why the government's even involved in that.
Ancient, man. That's from like England counties and.
But that's the thing is like you can't change that.
Right.
But one thing you could probably maybe improve is the state of the divorce court and child protection. So what? Okay, so you go to the third one now, right?
Yeah. So that we got healthcare, father's rights. Trying to find tax revenue that's not property tax, which would be from the sales tax.
The muni, like we were talking about.
Yeah, muni services.
Well, you're talking about trimming the fat in a way.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Well, it's just not leaving anything on the table.
I think you
start?
Trying to take all government programs and all government agencies that are non-constitutional and slowly trimming them down. And
you got any examples? Does it come to mind, like first off?
Yeah, I think some of them they're overemployed, and overregulated. Some people. There's an agency for everything. Like somebody wanted to. Somebody proposed creating an agency to oversee cyber terrorism for our power grid, which our power grid is private sector, and they already have that.
Yeah,
and why are we going to introduce
That's redundancy.
Yeah,
That's just somebody wanting to get a free paycheck.
Yeah, I think
that's somebody wanting consultancy.
Nobody does it better than the private sector. That's when it comes to efficiency. So.
Right. Well, yeah, because
they're the most to lose. They lose their ass. Whenever something's paid for by the government, nobody loses their ass but the taxpayer.
That was one of our resolutions that did pass in Hardin County as well, is that public employees should be reprimanded or penalized or fired when they incur a disciplinary action similar to the private sector. Sometimes if you're in the private sector and you blow your budget or you lose your department money, you lose your job, you get fired. In the public sector, for sure. It's like, oh man, we messed up the budget. Just better luck next year.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to point out sort of the nuance of what you're saying here too is because you're a person who's like pro NASA. Right. Mm-hmm. You're a person who's also saying that like you live in Lumberton and you want this muni thing to happen. And,
right.
And you already said, hey, if you were completely free market, then what are you going to do about firemen and policemen? So there is a middle ground in all of these things that people tend to shy away from, especially like Republicans. They'll go like a little bit too far libertarian sometimes.
Right.
And I like the middle ground that you're saying out right now. You're saying there's a lot of places where there's fat to trim. Mm-hmm. And then there's places that are starving. Yeah, so there's like it's like a scale.
Because Lumberton has grown so fast that the infrastructure is going to suffer pretty soon because the majority of the vacant land inside the city limits is being developed as residential neighborhoods. And those residential neighborhoods aren't contributing to property tax because we have none.
Are these right? Are these private owners of these lands?
Yeah, but because mostly the vacant land was private owners, and
so the private owners, do they make more money off of residency zones? Or
they're making curbed and guttered neighborhoods rather than commercial property.
How does Lumberton pay? How does Lumberton pay for services like drainage?
So Lumberton has no drainage district, and Hardin County has no drainage district. And people get on Facebook all the time.
Well, that's high land, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're not.
Hardin County, Silsbee is.
We've started to experience more flooding because there's an increase in concrete, and water doesn't seep through concrete.
Sure.
Or if you build a neighborhood right here.
I think we brought up Lumberton in Allison's podcast.
And all that runs off into
because Lumberton's set in a floodplain that used to be Beaumont's, I guess, floodplain.
And people think that it's people think that it's already people think that it's flooding, but they'll post their yard will be flooded and they'll post a picture on Facebook and be like, the city needs to do something about this, and I'll try to be quick to comment and be like, hey, the city doesn't have a drainage district, and they're like, well, they need to get one. I said, well, that's a taxing entity. Do you want to
pay property tax?
Do you want to pay for a drainage district? Because that's how you pay for a drainage district.
I didn't know Lumberton was set up as kind of like, it kind of has like a weird,
it's like Wild West.
It's kind of a weird, it still is not libertarian so much, but it was set set up as like a very loose like city state.
A little bit. I think
it was
set
set up to grow. That's what it was set up
yeah,
to do.
I think Beaumont did a great job with the drainage district because if you notice, the hike and bike is also a drainage district.
It's a big bowl.
It's a dual use.
Both of them.
Yeah. So not only is it an empty field where the water can drain, but
that was one thing that I commend Beaumont on too is they consolidated these projects. So at the same time that they like rejuvenated Calder, when they redid Calder and they also did like the nice bricked sidewalks and the trees. Underneath Calder is a 20 by 20 like caldera.
Oh, I remember seeing them get put in.
No, that is like the floodgates.
See, I harp on Beaumont a lot, and the government and everything like that. But like some of the things that they have done has been
99% of the time when DD6 is not flooded, you can play soccer or you can go to the hike and bike. And sure. I think the dual use is a great idea. That's a no-brainer.
It's a lot of consolidation. It's a lot of multi-use, like creative solutions for stuff.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, if you're developing property in Lumberton, bring in some dirt, raise up your house. That's because the city's not going to come in and save you.
That's the consequence of living in a tax-free zone, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we don't have city trash pickup. You got to contract with a waste management company.
Right.
We do have an added a fee on the water bill for mosquito spraying.
Oh, okay. So you have like a city.
I mean, Lumberton's pretty much in like marshlands in a way, right?
Yeah, some of it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it just like I said, it develops so fast that the infrastructure, traffic wise, may suffer because there's not enough money there to develop it. Based on hopefully that all those new neighborhoods are shopping locally and contributing to the sales tax dollars, but they're not paying anything for property tax. And even if you did a penny per square foot, oh my gosh, think of the surplus we would have. But I just can't support an additional tax.
This is actually really funny. I'm really good friends with somebody she's not the elected mayor, but kind of like the appointed mayor for the city of China.
Oh yeah,
and I get to hear their problems all the time.
Yeah.
So like
China's probably kind of barely a city.
Well, it's tiny. It's super tiny, but they have
that would be a fascinating one to hear.
But they have all the same problems. They're just much smaller.
Right.
And then also the community is much more engaged because there's so few of them.
Yeah.
And so they have like wastewater management and stuff. It's just very tiny.
Yeah.
And they talk about where we're going to get the money from this all the time. It's like a soap opera, man. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
hilarious.
Lumberton population increased because of BISD.
Do you think the city government of Lumberton, the way it was set up was great for what they were doing, but the population has almost probably outgrown how they're set up in a way?
I can't wait to see the 2020 census. It's gonna blow everybody away.
You think it's gonna be double?
Yeah, there's been so many neighborhoods.
Which is so many businesses have been built there. Yeah. None of those businesses, and especially the ones that have been put in place, none of those have not done any research.
Yeah, and
they probably have a rough idea what it's at.
Because census is every 10 years. So 2010 was the last one. 2020 will be the next one. And there's neighborhoods that didn't even exist in 2010 that have hundreds of homes.
Yeah, Lumberton's crazy like that. Yeah.
So look, I know we're bouncing around a lot, and we're probably coming close to the
we're landing the plane.
But I have a question. We're talking about property, we're talking about taxes, we're talking about things like this, and I don't think we talked about it on the podcast. But because you're in the Republican Party, you have a more middle of the road kind of viewpoint on taxing and handling certain situations in city government and in property, things like that. I kind of want to get your input on the problem we have in Beaumont of where downtown people have these buildings downtown, and I kind of wrote out something here while we're talking about other things because there's certain solutions that I thought about, and I kind of want to present them to you, and then maybe you can break them down and talk about them. So we have vacant properties in downtown Beaumont that just sit there and basically kind of rot away in a way. Especially Ford Park's another kind of example. Nothing much gets done with it.
It's a little different though.
What would be the move on it? Would it be? I'm not really supportive of eminent domain because basically the way I see it is if these buildings are in locations that the population wants to see grown. So basically what happens is like I don't want to force any kind of business or force any kind of thing on these kind of property owners or anything like that. But there comes a certain point to where if you don't do something with this property or with this land, it becomes like an obstruction to economic growth in that area.
So maybe what you're asking is instead of being authoritarian, because you already said you don't like eminent domain.
I'm not saying eminent domain.
So maybe like frame it like how would one incentivize
Yeah.
Well, but if they don't do anything with these properties, it's harming that area anyway.
Of course.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the balance between that? How do you solve that
I think the city's got to incentivize the investors to come in somehow.
It an occupancy tax, maybe?
Yeah, because like I said, Albany's Cormier knocked it out of the park with Edison Plaza. It's 100.
So are you supportive of an occupancy tax? Like, if you don't have somebody in your building, then you're going to be taxed on it being there? Is that basically what that is?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I would be more opposed to some type of incentive to get someone in there.
Right. The occupancy tax, like, so that was like Detroit. Detroit did an occupancy tax because there was a lot of buildings that were standing, dilapidated, and they were risks. So it really incentivized people to tear down buildings that weren't used. Yeah. That's why they have a lot of empty lots.
And there's already quite a few people working downtown. We got to get people living downtown. Right. That's the key. Right. The residency is where it's at. I wish a progressive developer like Albany's Cormier could take on several other properties.
And you said so Albany's Cormier they got a hold of the old Energy building, which is
yeah. And I remember it used to be, fairly empty, and you would have to enter through the back, and now they've totally revamped everything. It's super trendy. You enter through the front. It's got doormen that open the door for you. You check in with security. I mean, you feel like you're walking in.
How long ago did they do that?
Probably 5 years or so.
I remember going there to the Green Light Cafe.
Yeah. You feel like you're walking into Trump Tower. Like
nice.
It's wild. I mean, I used to go to that building specifically when I worked for Advanced Systems Alarm Services.
Yeah.
So how could we get that to happen?
So this was when it was the Energy building. It was fucking depressing.
The IRS used to be on the 7th floor, and I had to go to a meeting with them back when I was a business owner, and this was before Albany's Cormier took over, and it was like walking into a ghost town. Like I was scared because there's like nobody there. I don't know where. It's dark and gloomy, and it's changed 360 degrees. And so definitely people got to be living downtown. They tried to do some incentives where you take canoeing and paddleboarding on Riverfront Park, and they were going to allow a vendor to not be charged a fee. They were like, hey, you go do your thing, free enterprise, and it's on. We just need more people to be attracted down there, and so they are open to suggestions like that where they weren't going to charge the business owner a rental or a fee or anything like that. Yeah. I talked to several council members individually because I wanted to start paddleboarding on Event Center Lake.
Yeah.
But
it's a big lake. So.
They didn't want to do that. They're like, it's the tranquility of the lake.
I saw a post where
I could see that too.
A private company came in and they put little paddleboard swans in there.
They gave the green light on Riverfront Park, but that's tough. There's a current.
It just got flooded out.
And I was saying, if you go to downtown Austin,
you got some buff farms.
Yeah, if you go to Austin, you go to the Bat Bridge, you see people paddleboarding around. I was like, we can do that on Event Center Lake. Like, right. I know it would take it, but Riverfront Park, like you got to have. I kayak on Riverfront. On the Natchez, you got to be a little more experienced. You got to have some muscle behind it.
Well, aren't they about to deepen that?
Dredging. I guess
they're gonna make it deeper. So
like
the whole thing's going to change a little bit.
Have you listened to Allison?
Allison touched on that.
Yeah. It's going to be completely different.
It might. It's not.
I mean, she's not.
It hasn't passed yet. That's something that's come up.
Oh, okay.
No, she said it passed.
Oh, she did. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I was super disappointed.
I need to rewatch our own episode.
Yeah, I was sad about the damage downtown. From the hurricane.
Well, the hurricane, Riverfront Park kind of like fell in.
It did. It eroded. Yeah. It's such a cool potential with the amphitheater. And
there's only one thing that I was like super disappointed about this project that's being like put up.
You gonna do it? You're gonna do it?
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say it.
Are you gonna talk about the food truck park?
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna go ahead and say this.
About damn time, Aaron.
And this for you to this isn't like I don't think you would step in this pile of crap, but so you've already espoused like the benefits of private sector, right?
Right.
So somebody, and I know anything that's actually public and how the steps it takes to like come down the pipe to like get something to be actualized. And this whole sort of this plan for this Riverfront Park and revitalizing it, where there's like a little water park here and all this stuff, and there's a food truck park here, and all this, like that took a couple of years probably to design and go through like redesigns and then approvals and everything. In that whole time, not one person in city council, the city manager, Kyle, he's like, no one ever called me or Jordan. No one ever called us to ask if they think that the food truck park is a good idea.
Legitimately, like one of the most popular food trucks in town.
Oh, but hands down.
Yeah,
I thought about that.
I know
exact
you can't
thing.
say that.
I can't say. I'm
But
not
it's
gonna.
true, though.
I'm not gonna say it.
I thought about that too because anytime I do anything, I
Right.
go and look at systems that are currently in place.
Sure. Totally.
And I say, what could I do better and what could I improve upon?
But it's a sign.
And
It's a
that
sign
was
that
one.
nobody-
You were asking me why I became an Uber driver, and I was like, I Ubered in towns that I was in vacation on, like London or Austin.
Oh, yeah,
and it was like phenomenal. You know, you're getting picked up in Audis and Lincoln MKZs. You Uber in Beaumont, I was getting picked up in like 90s model Ford Explorers.
Z71s jacked up.
This one guy had a kid in a car seat in the back, and I'm like,
Oh, my
I'm like,
God,
you can't even do that. And I'm
no.
like, I'm not gonna report him because I know the next guys are gonna report him.
Right,
but like,
right, right.
that's not how you do it. And I'm like, I feel like
Oh,
I
my
could,
God.
I feel like I could be like the best Uber driver in Beaumont. So, so I tried to do it up. I got some.
You had some gum.
I got
in the
some.
back
Well, I got
and-
some magnets from Amazon
Sure.
and like a little LED light, and I was like, I'm gonna be the cool.
Did you have, like, a little mini bar back there?
So for work, sometimes I'm wearing a suit, right? And so instead of changing clothes,
No,
I
hell
would
no.
I would Uber in the suit, and my passengers would be like, "Whoa," you know, and they
You felt like a concierge service.
yeah,
Right.
pretty cool. So same thing for the food trucks. If I would find the best food truck and be like, hey, should we really do this?
Well,
Or-
that's the thing is that's
and
why
if we could have it in Beaumont, like, what do you think?
Right.
Where do you think that it could
but
be?
But that's what I'm saying is like that's what I have the problem for is because you have the city's basically like a laboratory and everyone's conducting different experiments, right? And
Everybody has their pet project.
and we spent 3 years in that food truck trying to figure out where to park, where's like good and where's not. And
Right.
we started downtown.
Yeah.
We went to 11th Street. We did all these things. We conducted experiments, and we found that downtown is not viable for a food truck.
Yeah.
So if they would have just spent 2 seconds in calling us and asking our opinions and be like, "Hey, what do you guys think about this?" and be like, "Okay, cool. Like, what does it have there? Do you have a gray water disposal? Because maybe we would come there sometimes. Maybe we would come there for events, like stuff like that. Do you want to park there all the time? I mean, no.
Yeah.
But it's leaving money on the table is what they're doing.
Right.
So you
Well,
have a great.
It's
and
fucking
not
ego
just-
too.
But it's not just about
It's like
me
somebody
either.
that was a pet project for them,
Yeah.
and they were like, "We're going to put a food truck park
Exactly.
and it'll be popular,"
That's-
And then
without
that's
even
exactly
thinking
it.
to
Yeah, yeah.
reach out to say if that
It
would
is
actually
egotistical
work.
Yeah.
because the thing is it's not just about us. It's not just about me and Dat Mac. There's other food truck vendors too that they've also conducted their own experiments like we
Totally.
did.
Yeah.
But they weren't contacted either. And what you're doing is like you're leaving on the table like
You're making assumptions.
You're leaving like information. If you would have just called us and be like, "Does this work?" We could have told you no, and we would have told you why it wouldn't have worked.
And you would
then
save the
maybe-
city $30,000, $40,000.
Yeah.
Maybe you
at
could have
least.
rearranged the idea.
And
you know,
right now on a Saturday or Sunday,
Yeah.
downtown Beaumont is The Walking Dead.
Of course.
there's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
yeah, and
That's a whole other story to get into.
right?
because the people don't live there. People, Monday through Friday, you can get the lunchtime crowd. What are you going to do after lunch? What are you going to
Sure.
do before lunch? Everybody's going to be in Orleans building.
But if you ask all the business owners what they think might be a viable solution, you might get a lot of very valuable information.
Right.
Especially like Hamburger Depot's there now. There's a lot of business that are there. They do well on the lunch crowd during the day. But if you ask other people that have successful business in town and you ask them their opinion about how would we revitalize downtown, you might not get some information, but you might get some very valuable information.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
no one's doing that. And I think it is an ego thing, like Zach said. I think it is an ego thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That's wild.
Well, damn. I really don't. I don't think I'm going to edit this thing at all because
I hope you don't.
Man, this is, and it's no offense to you or anybody else, but this is
Yeah.
the most rambling interview we've done since we kind of changed up our format, like we were
Yeah.
talking about before.
For sure.
But I love it so much. I
love,
really do.
I love how it's like a portrait of our personalities.
Well, no,
Does that make sense?
but
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I really like about it, Tyler, is that we're doing this. We're talking about all these ideas with somebody who's a representative of the Republican Party, and and I know I've been harping on that, but that's a big deal.
It's super important.
Especially
Yeah.
down here. I mean, you're representative of the Hardin County
Right.
Republican Party, which has probably never been a blue county, and it probably
Yeah.
never will be.
You're a member of the
And
party
it's-
that 80% voted for Trump
Right.
in Hardin County. Yeah.
Do-
Yeah.
You represent something that I want to show to people because there's a lot of people that are friends of ours that we hang out with who the Republican Party has been built up to be this evil thing. There's nothing, there's all this stuff around it with both parties, really.
Yeah, and I want to show people that your stereotypes.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah,
there's so much vitriol too. Like everybody's
Totally.
just so angry, and
the three of us
calm down.
Yeah, the three of us could hang out every day, live together every day, and there would be no conflict.
Totally.
Absolutely not.
100%.
And we've talked about some very controversial topics.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Very much so. Yeah.
And we've barely scratched the surface. And I'd really love to have you back, and maybe we could do it again. Maybe a little more structured.
Yeah.
I think this was necessary though.
Totally.
Let's just get it all out there, and then maybe next time we might talk about space. We might talk about science. Maybe next time we'll focus more about local politics.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even deeper. Maybe next time we'll talk about Uber. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But Tyler, man, thanks for coming, dude. Did you have a good time?
Oh yeah, phenomenal. I was looking forward to it all week and had a blast.
Same.
And thank you for always supporting us and always and more importantly, always interacting with us, because that's what this is for. We want to start conversations. That's the main thing you can take away from this conversation, is that this is people that might not ever talk to each other that are. Mm-hmm. And let's just do that on some social media. If you guys have anything to say that's contrarian to what we say, come on, tell us. We're not gonna attack you or anything.
Yeah, we got a group. A to Z podcast group is a little Facebook group that you can go on, and that's where we're gonna try to build some more conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Today was definitely A to Z.
It was, yeah, absolutely. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook,
Twitter,
A to Z, whatever.
Thanks for listening.
Appreciate it. All right, well that's the show, everybody. Yeah, we had a great time. We want to really thank our guest Tyler Troutman.
For sure.
Thanks buddy. We're gonna love having you back on one day. You're one of those guys that are gonna be repeat, hopefully.
And he also talked about doing his own podcast. So
he did. We might be having something in the works with him. You never know. We might be working on a network. Who knows?
Yeah, but if you liked what you heard, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. We hope you enjoyed it, and I guess you got any shout outs you want to give?
Let's see. Do I got any shout outs? Shout out to my mom. Shout out to my mom. She still doesn't know what a podcast is, even though I've explained it to her.
I guess. Well, actually, shout out to your mom, but we'll do shout outs to our dads as well.
Oh yeah, that's
Father's
right.
Day's coming up.
Father's
It's actually
Day's
my dad's birthday today. We're recording the
so
intro.
Shout out to Alan. Happy birthday, Alan.
Happy birthday, Alan.
I want some yard eggs.
And happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you on the next one. Next week we have Arlie Hammonds.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, so we got Gator Country on next week. So check that one out. It's gonna be coming at you next week.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. See you next time.